Member opportunity, Ms. Callie Mann. Callie?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Here's my report for this month's meeting. I know the budget issues are complex, and this has been a stressful time for everyone, but I wanted to take a moment to highlight some of the wonderful work done by students this month. Students in the DECA Club recently went to their state champion competition, 10 students qualified for nationals and 3 are now state champs, so congrats to everyone involved for all of their hard work. Our Drama Guild has been hard at work putting together the upcoming spring musical, Chicago. It is so important now more than ever to come out and support the arts, so make sure to grab your tickets and come see all of our hard work come alive on stage. And finally, I just wanted to say, I know that there will be a lot of discussion over these next few weeks about the budget, but I just wanted to thank the board for keeping students at the forefront of their decision making. Thank you.
Thank you, Callie. Before we begin the first portion of our public comment tonight at this meeting with our opportunity for students, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that tonight's presentation and the discussions surrounding the proposed budget and potential staffing changes are extremely difficult ones. Behind every position in our school district is a dedicated professional whom we value tremendously, who have contributed to the education and well-being of our students. I know that we may have some students here tonight that may wish to address the board about specific employees. Please know that I cannot speak about specific employees. As always, the board is grateful for all of you being here, and we are eager to listen to you tonight. Even if I can't respond at this time, please know that we are all listening. Many of your questions or concerns may be addressed in tonight's presentation. If you still have questions or concerns after that, please know that you can always come back and share them again with us. Once again, thank you for being here, and at this time, I would like to invite up any students that would like to address the board.
Hi, my name is Catherine, and I'm a senior at Southside, involved in many STEM programs at the high school, including computer science and robotics. I am here to speak about the importance of STEM programs and opportunities in our district as you navigate the current budget deficit. Today, understanding technology is not just important for future engineers. AI and digital tools are becoming part of almost every field, so students need to understand how technology works and how to use it responsibly. In 2020, the New York State Board of Regents adopted the Learning Standards for Computer Science and Digital Fluency, which state that every student from kindergarten through 12th grade should learn how digital technologies work, how to use them safely, and how to create with them. These standards call on districts to expand access to computer science education starting in the fall of 2024 school year so that all students can develop these essential skills. This shows that technology and computing are not optional, they are critical for students' futures. Cutting STEM opportunities would move our district further away from these educational guidelines, not closer to them. Yesterday, I asked students in our computer science classes what these programs mean to them. 15 students wrote thoughtful responses about how these courses have shaped their high school experience. One student wrote, "Despite struggling, the teacher helps me a lot, and it teaches me problem skills that I didn't learn in other classes." Another student wrote, "Today, CS and cybersecurity are important aspects of life, and having the opportunity to take these courses makes me enjoy school much more." These skills show up across our school community in robotics, science research class, and even in business and entrepreneurship. Courses in computer science may be used to meet the New York State mathematics and science diploma credit requirements. While Southside does not have an IB computer science class, the IBO recognizes computer science as part of its science curriculum. I am the founder and president of Southside's Computer Science Honor Society, and I began the process of starting the chapter in the fall of my sophomore year. When AP Computer Science Principles was added to the curriculum, the Computer Science Honor Society finally launched this year with 39 student members, freshmen through seniors. We are one of only 11 chapters in the entire state. This level of interest demonstrates how deeply students in our district value computer science and STEM opportunities. It honestly breaks my heart that I have to ask for the protection of opportunities that have shaped who I am and should be there for future students. I urge you to protect the STEM classes, activities, and teachers who make these opportunities possible. I know that these budget decisions are difficult, and I appreciate the time and consideration you are giving to students. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Hold on a second.
Oh, okay. Good evening, Mr. Gavin, Miss Berry, Dr. Downing, Miss Grunner, Miss Hackett, Miss Messier, and everyone here tonight. My name is Charlotte Gleason. I am an 8th grader at Southside Middle School. I am here tonight to comment on Board Policy 7420, the athletic placement process, because I know it's on the agenda and open for discussion tonight. I'm here to share my experience and offer something to think about as you consider whether this policy should be revised. I am a softball player. I played for Southside Middle School as a 7th grader. I played travel softball for Storm Academy, and for the past 3 years I have represented our town in the Rockville Center Little League on our Williamsport team. I currently play at the 14U level and have also played with girls at the 18U level. My position is catcher, and I take pride in being a leader on the field. My dream is to play college softball. Academically, I am on track for this thanks to the amazing teachers I've had at Covert and Southside Middle School. I am now working to build my athletic resume and develop as much as I can as a player. I have played with and against athletes my age who play up and compete on their high school teams as 8th graders. During the fall, I had asked my parents if I could try out for the high school softball team this year. I simply wanted to compete at a level where I felt challenged. That's when I learned about Board Policy 7420, which currently allows only 4 sports to participate in the athletic placement process, and softball isn't one of them. In November, my mom emailed Mr. McGuire on my behalf asking if I could have the opportunity to try out for the high school team. He was very kind and explained that while he understood my desire for a more competitive environment, the district must follow the current policy. I appreciated that response, and we respectfully thanked him for his time. But it made me start thinking. Policy 7420 says that the purpose of the athletic placement process is to allow students to participate at a level based on readiness rather than age or grade. It also says that the program provides increased opportunity, a fairer competitive environment, and greater personal satisfaction. Those goals are exactly why I asked for the opportunity. Not allowing me the chance to try is holding me back. Not every 8th grader should automatically play high school sports. There should absolutely be standards and criteria that athletes must meet. But if those standards already exist for 4 sports, why not allow athletes in all sports the chance to be evaluated? Rockville Center should want the strongest teams possible. If a student athlete is ready, physically, mentally, and academically, they should at least have the opportunity to try. If we can help the high school teams win, let us. I'm not here tonight to change the decision that was made for me. I will proudly play this season with my friends at Southside Middle School, and I'm excited to do that. But maybe if someone had asked for this change years ago, things might be different for me now. So I'm here to ask you to consider the athletes coming after me, the younger softball players and other student athletes who may be ready for that next level. Please consider revising this policy so that all athletes have the opportunity to challenge themselves and reach their full potential. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Hello. Hi, my name is Molly Cosgrove. I am currently a senior here at Southside. Although I will be gone before any of the budget stuff affects me directly, my heart breaks for these teachers and the children who I will be leaving behind. I am not up here to condemn you all, as that would be a poor reflection of my Christianity. I stand before you today because of my love for these teachers. I am only able to love them as much as I do because Jesus has loved me first. School has always been a challenge for me. I am not someone who does not need to try. If I want to succeed, I have to work for it. When there were times I felt like no one saw anything in me, there was always at least one teacher. I suppose what upsets me is that your mistakes are now falling upon the teachers, which will greatly impact the kids. I could rattle off all the problems I have with the district as someone who has firsthand seen them, but that's pointless. I believe you are all just trying to do your job, but now that the truth is coming out, your integrity is really being put to the test. I think we would all have a little more respect if you were just honest. Thank you.
Are there any other students that would like to address the board? Okay. Mr. Gavin, Superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Barry. We are ready to begin tonight's presentation, but as we begin the presentation, I want to acknowledge the weight of the moment, the weight felt by employees worried about their jobs, the weight felt by students worried about their teachers, the weight felt by parents worried about their students, their teachers, and their academic programs. We will do this presentation tonight that has a lot, and we will include a lot of numbers on a page. But please know that both the Board of Education and the administration understand that behind every number is someone who has dedicated time, talent, and heart to Rockville Center. We face difficult decisions, but that is not a reflection of the value of the people about whom we have to make decisions. We have a financial reality that we have to deal with. As we move forward, we will continue to support our families, students, and staff, and we remain committed to preserving what makes Rockville Center special. So tonight, we will do a presentation on the budget and proposed staffing reductions. So tonight, the goal is to produce a budget that is aligned with our mission, supports outstanding programs for students, and is fiscally responsible and sustainable. In order to achieve these goals, we will have to make hard choices and difficult recommendations. The hard choices include how we will get to be sustainable and fiscally responsible, while providing programs, and the difficult recommendations come when we are recommending reducing staff members that are excellent and dedicated to our students. So I want to go over the calendar. The calendar, we follow a process on the budget calendar for a reason. And that's because we can conduct a 5-month-long public conversation about the budget. This allows public input and Board of Education input. And it also allows time for a lot of moving factors, including changes in potential state aid, changes in regulation, and the governor's budget. So starting in January 29th, where our budget process started with the tax levy calculation. Based on that presentation, the Board of Education asked us to come back and talk about what would the potential ramifications be if we exceeded the tax cap. On February 25th, we did a presentation on revenue, capital, and administration. And tonight's presentation includes recommendations about our instructional programs, special education, pupil personnel services, special schools, instructional media, co-curricular and athletics and arts. In 2 weeks, our budget presentation will take all of those previous presentations and review the revised budget, all of the components. On April 16th, we will have our preliminary budget hearing. On May 7th, we will have our budget hearing, and then the vote is the annual budget, election and budget on May 19th. Tonight's presentation includes recommendations to address our budget gap, and this gives the board and the public a chance to provide feedback as we continue to move through this budget process. What challenges do we face in the budget this year? Expenses, the general challenge is expenses are rising faster than revenue. We also have an increased cost due to the way we're structured, and we have had declining enrollment. 10 years ago, over the last 10 years, we have had a reduction of about 8% of our students, 288 from 10 years ago today. One of the things that has come up in the past was a question from the public that said, are people choosing private and parochial schools instead of Southside or instead of Rockville Center public schools? So we did an analysis as well about how many Rockville Center resident students have been choosing private and parochial schools. That number has also declined, about 14% over those same 10 years. We also, one of the other budgetary challenges that we face is that we are limited to 2% increase on the tax levy growth factor. We face employee health insurance costs that continue to rise at unsustainable rates. There are unfunded mandates driving costs, such as electric buses. Now, we don't have to pay for electric buses yet, but the reason transportation costs have been escalating over the last few years is because transportation companies have been building in their transition to electric buses to meet that mandate. And we have to recognize that our state aid formula does not adjust for high-cost areas like Long Island, does not recognize student need in a consistent way, and values the wealth ratio more than it does inflation. So let's look a little bit at some of those challenges more closely. For our enrollment snapshot, we looked at the year 2015, 2016, and we also looked at this year, 2025 and 2026. These are our enrollments in our buildings. And this corresponds to roughly the same percentage in Nassau County as a whole. Now, I will acknowledge here and point out that I could only find data for 10-year gap between 2012 and 2022, so I don't have it exactly the same 10 year for year. But I can also tell you that Nassau County has seen that reduction. So we have essentially lost 288 students in our district, and that has a direct impact on the aid that we have. You can see changes in enrollment with only Hewitt rising. Covert is roughly held the same, and that's because we have most of our special programs in terms of special education at Covert on the elementary level. Riverside's enrollment has gone from 173 to 135. Watson has declined from 295 to 220. Wilson has held pretty steady, but at 399 to 376. The middle school has lost some students, and our Southside High School has also lost some students. What does private school enrollment look like during roughly that same time? So the total private school, parochial school enrollment, and we know this by the number of students that are asked for transportation, has gone from 634 to 539. The biggest drop we have seen is Rockville Center students that attend St. Agnes. That doesn't mean St. Agnes's enrollment has dropped to this level. It just means that the number of Rockville Center residents at St. Agnes has dropped. Chaminade has increased slightly. Sacred Heart has declined slightly. The Latin School has increased slightly, and Kellenberg has held steady. And we do have students that attend other private and parochial schools all over the island and into Queens and in New York City. One thing I can tell you is that's the snapshot right now. Have we seen enrollment go up at parochial schools? Yes. Have we seen it go down at parochial schools? Yes. But right now, as it stands, this is where our enrollment looks like from a 10-year period. When I talked a little bit before about structural difficulties, this is what I mean. We currently run 5 elementary schools that are the heart and center of their neighborhoods. We acknowledge that it is great to be able to walk to your elementary school. We acknowledge that that elementary school is a special place. All of our elementary schools are a special place. But this is how the way we are structured increase our costs. So Board of Education guidelines state that at the elementary level, if we have a class size of 25 in each class, that is the basic guideline or the cap that we should consider. Now, obviously, there are times when a student might move in springtime, and we might not want to break a class late in spring, but for the most part, we try to make sure that our elementary class sizes are capped at 25 students per class. In our current grade 3, we have 249 students. You would imagine that if they were all in one building, like we've heard here at the board, where people have talked about what the Princeton plan is, where everyone in the same grade is in the same building, if we had that set up, we would run with 249 students, 10 sections of 24 and a few with 25. We currently run, based on where the students live, 11 sections in that grade level. In grade 4, we actually have less students. We have 234 students, but again, because of where they are located, we run 12 sections with an average class size of 19.5. So if you can imagine, if we did have a Princeton plan where every class and every grade was in the same building, we would only have to run, for this amount of students, we would only have to run 20 sections, and we're currently running 23. You can look and see that in many different grade levels each year, depending on where they are. So not only are we adding a classroom teacher here, we're also adding a piece of a PE teacher, a piece of an art teacher, a piece of a math teacher. So this is what I mean with the way we are structured drives cost. It's not moving. There we go. Okay. Okay. So I also want to talk about what happened last year. So we had a deficit last year in terms of we had a gap between where our anticipated expenses and our anticipated revenue was of about $3.5 million. That gap last year was due to similar causes that we have seen this year. It was due to insurance costs, employee insurance costs, contractual obligations, and costs associated with student needs. So how did we handle it? We didn't replace retirements, we identified efficiencies in transportation, and we had one administrator position that was accessed. We were able to close the gap, but this year we are running a very tight budget. We anticipated that there would be an additional gap this year for 26-27. So how did we try to address that as early on as we possibly could? We cut down on overtime. We offered a retirement incentive to our units. We reduced 8 additional teacher assistant positions in August. And what I mean by reduced was we had teacher assistants that left to take other positions or teaching positions or decided to retire. We didn't replace those positions. We reduced a custodial position due to retirement, and we reduced a clerical position mid-year due to a retirement. And we froze spending in December. Ms. Rehak will take us through the next section of the presentation.
So I'm going to go over a little bit of the budget gap that we currently have. Our proposed revenue budget, which we reviewed at the February 25th meeting, which is available online on YouTube as well, is at $141 million, which is about a $1.366 million increase from 25-26. That's a 0.98% increase in our revenue. Our total proposed expenditure budget came in at $147 million if we roll almost everything over. So some of the drivers of that number, the $147 million, is just inflation, which we've talked about, our health insurance increases, which we budgeted a 10% increase. We did see this past January roughly a 9% increase in health insurance, and just increased student need. So, and on the revenue side, you can see our revenue only went up 0.98%, our tax cap being at 2%, state aid, our foundation aid, we're receiving the 1% minimum, which is very little, and our appropriated fund balance going down. So with those items, we came in at $147 million, which created a budget gap of $6 million. As Mr. Gavin said, we did know that this was coming. We had a gap last year, so we started doing things early. One of the things we did was offer retirement incentives. With that retirement incentive, we did generate savings of $2.8 million to reduce our budget gap to about $3.2 million. There was a $45,000 change on this slide from the last time I presented due to additional retirees and an add back of one retiree that after further review, we know we're gonna need to replace. So with that, our current updated budget gap is $3.2 million. Just one of the things I want to point out, when we said we were aware of this happening, when we had a gap last year, we knew we were operating on a much tighter budget. And I will talk about fund balance and appropriated fund balance a little later, but one of the things that happens then in the following year when your budget is so tight, the amount we appropriate to the following year had to reduce. The district historically appropriated about $2.8 million of fund balance every year to offset the following year's budget. As the budget got tighter last year when we did fund balance and, in budget season, I found that we weren't gonna have $2.8 million. So we reduced last year to 2.4. That's a revenue item on the budget. So if the revenue goes down from 2.8 to 2.4, then our expenditures have to go down as well because we need a balanced budget. We knew operating such a tight budget in 25-26, we weren't gonna have 2.4 at the end of this year either. So we've reduced appropriated fund balance in this budget from 2.4 to 1.6. Again, that's a revenue item, so if my revenue dropped down by $800,000, my expenditures have to as well. As you operate on a tighter budget, that is what will happen. You're kind of kicking some of those problems down to the future, but also compounding them. So while we had a smaller gap last year due specifically to appropriated fund balance, we now have a bigger one this year. So we also want to look at that as we're preparing the 26-27 budget and looking forward to future years of 27, 28, and beyond, and make sure we also have long-term planning in mind when we do this. I'm going to give it back to you.
So how did we get here? And this goes back to our central challenge. Our expenses are rising faster than our revenue. Our tax levy cap, again, is 2%. We have faced inflation, which we have detailed in each of the last presentations, that inflation has outpaced what the tax cap is. Again, our state aid formula right now, The governor's proposed budget has us at a 1% increase. The one-house budgets for both of the Assembly and the Senate have us on a 2% increase, which roughly the difference between that is about $120,000. And again, we have our health insurance costs, which continue to rise at unsustainable rates. As I said before in detail, the structural costs continue to drive costs. We have a declining enrollment, and we are currently staffed above what our program and enrollment require. In previous years, in my first 2 years of my first 2 budgets, we were able to use attrition to reduce staff. That attrition has come in a number of places where teachers have retired, teacher assistants have either left or taken jobs or taken teaching jobs, and we were able to use that to manage the expenses increase. This year, we're no longer able to use attrition to fully come back with a budget that is balanced and sustainable over a long period of time. You just hit the button. What's going on? Thank you.
So now we're just going to dive in a little more into appropriated fund balance. I think fund balance in general can be confusing to a lot of people when they hear it and what it is. So I just want to go over and give a little background. I know I did this in the previous presentations as well, but I want to go over it again. So what is appropriated fund balance? By definition, appropriated fund balance is the portion of a government's accumulated unreserved savings or fund balance designated to cover budget deficits or reduce taxes in the upcoming fiscal year. So districts will use our prior year excess revenues and expenditure savings to help balance the next year's budget. So basically what you have left over from the budget is what's used towards the following year's budget. So 25-26, what's left forward, you can use some of that towards 26-27. It's not meant to be a recurring revenue item. It's really a one-time revenue source, and just to help reduce tax levy or offset rising expenditures or decreasing revenues. It shouldn't be relied upon for long-term to sustain structural budget gaps. And that's for exactly the reason we're experiencing now and what I kind of talked about a little bit before. Because in the prior year, our fund balance projection didn't have the $2.8 million that we were appropriating for so many years. So we had to reduce it to 2.4, which in turn creates a reduction in our overall budget. And now being on a much tighter budget for 25-26, as I said, we have to reduce it further. So when you start relying on it, you have to make sure you have that money left over at the end of the year. And we don't. So we have to start reducing that and getting that to a place where we can sustain it. Because right now, this 2.8 was not sustainable. Oh, now it worked. Okay, so I'm good. I want to review. I'm on.
There you go, leave it.
Yeah, I'm good. I want to review fund balance a little further and what my recommendation is for appropriating to next year and why my recommendation is that. So fund balance, as I said, is essentially the district savings account. New York State allows school districts to retain up to 4% of the budget in unappropriated fund balance, and that's for financial stability. So while that is the maximum limit, it is considered best practice to retain 4% in fund balance, and that's really for emergency items, an emergency facility repair, an HVAC goes down, a pipe burst, your boilers, or if you have a state or federal mandate change that's unfunded, that's not included in your budget because it just comes up. A loss of funding, we constantly hear that federal funding may be in jeopardy, we may lose it. If we lose it, we have a lot of things we pay for with that funding that we'll have to have the money for. Severe weather events, natural emergencies, or any other unexpected enrollment changes or unanticipated student needs that are over and above what we do have in the budget. So that's what your unappropriated fund balance is meant to be used for. So at the end of last year, our fund balance was approximately 3.45% of the budget, which is about $4.8 million. Based on our financial projections that I just did as of February 28th, we currently estimate that the district will end this year with approximately 3.94% in unappropriated fund balance. and that's after we appropriate $1.6 million for this budget. But the most important thing to note with that is that the 3.94% is only a projection. It's based on a lot of assumptions, it's based on annualizations of estimates, and the final amount could change in either direction, and it usually does. So the reason I'm recommending $1.6 million to appropriate is because it aligns with what I reasonably believe this year's operating budget, operating results can support in next year's budget. If we appropriate more than that amount, we may no longer be using this year's operating surplus, because if I don't have that, then I'm not using that. So instead, we would begin spending down our existing savings, which would reduce the district's financial stability and create additional budget pressure in future years. Also, like I said, we have to be able to sustain the amount that we appropriate. 1.6, I feel, is still going to be high because our 26-27 budget is going to be tight also. But I'm comfortable that we'll have the money this year to appropriate that. Over the past decade, the district relied on significant appropriations of fund balance to support the budget. While that approach, like I said, can help in the short term, it's not sustainable long term. And part of our work right now is ensuring the district's finances remain stable for future years. I absolutely understand that the reductions required to close the remaining gap are difficult, and we're not making any recommendations lightly. However, it is my responsibility to recommend a plan that supports both the current budget and long-term financial health of the district. Appropriating additional fund balance may reduce reductions this year, but it would simply shift a larger budget problem into next year. So while we certainly could appropriate more fund balance, the concern is that if this year's operating results do not generate that amount of surplus, we're drawing down on our savings, which is what was done last year as well. So again, it will help in the short term, but it creates a larger structural gap in the following year. So fund balance can help us manage a difficult year, but it cannot solve the structural budget gap. So some of our budget priorities when building this budget was to maintain strong educational programs. It was to align our staffing with enrollment trends and our program requirements based on need. It was to address structural financial challenges, remain responsible to taxpayers, and protect the district's long-term financial stability. So how did we develop the budget? We rebuild the budget every year based on needs. We use zero-based budgeting. Zero-based budgeting offers significant advantages, particularly in promoting financial discipline and efficiency. We roll forward all our current programs and staff based on need. So one of the things we've been doing in the past several weeks is meeting with all our building administrators. We talked a lot about the staffing needed to run our programs effectively. I want to recap a couple of the things we discussed from the last board meeting, some of the proposed administrative and transportation budget reductions. We proposed to reduce one assistant principal at the high school, reduce facilitator stipends, reduce 2 clerical positions from retirements in the central administrative offices, and have a reduction in matrons on the buses. We will still meet all our mandates for matrons. One of the things I get asked about a lot is the tax cap calculation and a potential pierce to the cap. So I just want to review where our tax cap stands now and what my recommendation is. Right now, the tax levy limit is 2.06%. The increase is roughly $2.2 million. Our tax cap calculation includes a $2 million in transfer to capital, which was discussed in both the January and February board meetings. My recommendation is to set the levy within the tax cap at 2.06%. So I keep getting asked, why is the administration not recommending piercing the cap? The district's facing a significant budget gap that's partly structural in nature, as Mr. Gavin has explained. So simply increasing revenue in a single year does not solve the underlying imbalance between ongoing expenses and available resources. My analysis shows that the district is currently staffed above what enrollment and program needs require. Before asking taxpayers for additional funding beyond the cap, we believe it's appropriate to address the structural issues. The tax levy cap already allows for a 2.06% increase in taxes. Many members of our community are facing financial pressures of their own, and we have to be mindful of the burden additional taxes would create. Piercing the cap, similar to appropriated fund balance, may provide short-term relief, but it does not correct the underlying imbalance in our budget. Our responsibility is to ensure the district remains financially sustainable in years ahead, which we keep talking about, long-term planning and sustainability. Our goal is to right-size the district responsibly while continuing to provide a strong educational program for students. This is where all the planning started, with our students and what programs we want to deliver for our students and what we need to build those programs. The administration believes that staying within the tax cap while addressing structural issues is the most reasonable path forward for both our school community and our taxpayers. So now we're going to go through some of the budget program components, and I just want to let everyone know what's included in each of those components. So we have the instruction component, which is all our teaching staff, our teachers, teaching assistants, teacher aides, permanent subs, our building clerical staff, equipment and supplies, rental spaces we have, dues and memberships, charter schools, textbooks, including for our private and parochial students, BOCES programs, Arts in Motions, Ashokan, our music and arts budget, all the staffing for music and arts, art, music, performing arts, equipment, repairs and supplies, our instruments, including our rentals, our leases, and our repairs of our equipment, transportation, and licensing fees. Our special ed component includes administration, teachers, teacher assistants, teacher aides, occupational therapists, speech, contracted services we have, again, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech, assistive technology, and other related services based on student needs. Equipment, textbooks and supplies, private school and BOCES tuition for district-placed students. Our pupil personnel services component includes attendance, guidance, which is our counselors, our clerical staff, dues and memberships and supplies, our college fair, financial aid night, college visits, Naviance, our BOCES occupational education students, health services, which are our nurses, equipment and supplies, final forms, any contracting nursing we have, and doctor services, our Northwell mental health program, our private school health services, our psychological services, and our social work services. We also have our special schools, which is our summer programs, Project Great before and after school, our middle school student center after school, community ed programs, ACE, Regents Review, and then our instructional media component is our library and AV services, the staffing, the computer software resources, our library books, our supplies, our educational television, the TV studios in the middle school and the high school, and our computer-assisted instruction, which includes all the hardware and software to run the district's computer network. We also have our co-curricular activities, which includes our chaperones for all our events, our clubs, our intramurals, and we have athletics, which is all our teams, the equipment, uniforms, supplies, our coaches, assistant coaches, supervisors for our games and meets, athletic trainer, any facility rentals we have. We have golf greens fees, swimming aquatic center, tennis court fees, bowling lanes, our maintenance reconditioning of equipment, our BOCES coordination and referee fees, and our supplies. So here's just a look at some of those components without any reductions in them. So you can see instruction went up to $44.6 million from $43.2 million. That's a $1.4 million increase, or 3.37%. This increase is mostly made up of contractual increases, our salaries and wages. In special education, you'll see the 26-27 proposed budget is $21.2 million, an increase from $18.4 million, which is about $2.8 million. Of that increase, $715,000 makes up contractual increases, again, salaries and wages, and $2.1 million is an increase in tuition and services based on student needs. Our pupil personnel services is at $6.68 million, up from $6.2. That's about a $467,000 increase. That $467,000 increase is made up of $236,000 in contractual increases, salaries and wages, and $226,000 is an increase in our occupational education, which is our students going to BOCES schools for trades. As a reminder, our revenue increase that I said earlier in the presentation was about $1.37 million. So the instruction contractual increases alone, you can see, are greater than our total revenue increase. And if anyone was here for the last presentation or watched the last presentation, you know I said our health insurance increase is $1.9 million. That also exceeds our revenue increase on its own. So we know reductions have to be made. Our special schools budget is at $1.3 million, up from $1.25, about a $41,000 increase. Again, that is contractual increases. Our instructional media is we actually have a reduction of $37,000. That reduction mostly includes equipment purchases. As I said earlier on the budget gap slide, we did already go through this budget and reduce greatly supplies and equipment. So here you can see some of the results of the supplies and equipment reductions. In co-curricular, we have a reduction of $12,000, which is also a reduction in supplies. This was reduced and is actually closer to what our spending is for co-curricular. And athletics, we have an increase of $6,389, which in athletics, we also did have reductions in supplies and equipment as well, which was closer to what we are actually spending. So while we did bring them down and get closer to what we're actually spending, as I was talking earlier about fund balance, it's a much, much tighter budget that we made by reducing a lot of the supplies and equipment. So given that tonight we're going to review several proposed reductions, most of the above will change. On March 26th, we're going to do a review of all the components of the budget with the proposed changes incorporated into it, and we'll go over that.
Thank you, Ms. Riak. So now, in this section of the presentation, we're going to outline the administration's recommendations that will allow the district to prepare a fiscally responsible and sustainable budget, allow the district to meet all instructional mandates, which includes programmatic mandates, special education mandates, and legal mandates, and maintain a wide variety of course offerings to prepare students for post-secondary experiences. These recommendations are not final until two things happen. First, the board needs to adopt the budget on April 16th, and then second, the budget would need to be passed or we would need to enter into contingency. At the elementary level, with that said, you will see slides now that have a lot of numbers. And again, I reiterate to everyone, those numbers, all of them, represent a teacher or an employee that has done nothing but give an outstanding job to our students. All of the employees that we're going to talk about tonight are valued. All of the roles, teacher assistants, clerical, teachers, administrators, they're all highly valued. Their work is highly recognized. That being said, these are the difficult recommendations that we are making here tonight. Proposed elementary reductions. The administration is proposing a reduction of reading positions from 14 to 9 across the district. What is the program impact? Tier 2 services will be provided with larger group sizes. Right now, they are generally speaking between 4 and 5, and they will move up to 7 and 8. Tier 3 services will continue to be provided through pullouts. The administration is recommending a 1.0 reduction in math AIS, where AIS math teachers will be reduced from 5 across the district to 4 across the district. What is the impact? 2 teachers will need to be shared between Watson, Coburn, and Riverside, and group sizes may increase from very small, roughly 2 to 5, to 5 to 8. The Stellar program, this is a programmatic change. we are recommending that the Stellar program be 2 times a cycle for all students in grades 3 to 5, and 1 time a cycle for students in grades K to 2. That does not mean that any student will not have the option for book exchange. All of our students will have the opportunity for book exchange. This will result in a 3.0 reduction of teachers assigned to Stellar. And then at the last recommendation, we're looking at the middle school. Grade 6 will be reduced. I'm recommending that grade 6 be reduced from 12 sections to 10. Class sizes in grade 6 will be 25 or 26 in major subject areas, which again is within board guidelines. I want to make it clear that these reductions also include 4 retirements. So these are not all excesses. There are 4 retirements built into these numbers. Our MTSS program. What do those reductions do to our MTSS program? With these proposed reductions, Tier 2 students, which is roughly between 10 to 15% of our students, will still receive 60 to 90 minutes a cycle, which is not a change. There will still be the opportunity for 3 times a cycle for reading in a push-in or pull-out model, and 2 times a cycle for math for the students that require those services in a push-in, pull-out model. For Tier 3 students, which generally speaking service between 1% and 5% of our students, they will still be able to receive 120 to 155 minutes per cycle, which for Tier 3 continues with a predominantly pull-out model. The pull-out will be with a subject specialist, either one of the reading or math teachers. At the secondary level, our proposed reductions, and we clarify here which reductions also include a retirement. In English Language Arts, we have 2 retirements where we are recommending that one of those positions be reduced and one of those positions be rehired. What is the program impact to English Language Arts at the high school and middle school? Class sizes at the high school and middle school increased to between 23 and 26 for our core or Regents-based ELA classes from what an average is now from 18 to 24. We would not be able to offer the SAT verbal prep class if the current enrollment remains below 15 per section. So right now, our SAT verbal prep class, the enrollments are not high. We would not recommend offering that class. And it is really important to discuss at this point that all of our secondary scheduling is still in flux. So students are going to make different decisions throughout the course of the spring, and the high school and middle school administration will continue to keep us updated about which classes enrollments are increasing and which one of our classes are decreasing. That ELA reduction, like I said before, includes 2 retirees. We will be replacing or recommending that we replace one of those positions. In the math department, we currently have 1 retirement, but we are recommending 2 reductions of staff in terms of positions. What would that impact be for our program? There would be, I want to be clear on this, there would be no team teaching in the middle school for the grade 8 algebra or the grade 8 math classes. Team teaching is a choice. Co-teaching is a mandate. We will still meet our co-teaching mandates in grade 8 at the middle school, as we will in all of the other classes where co-teaching is offered. Team teaching was done a few years ago to support students in algebra and in algebra classes. We are recommending that team teaching choice not continue in grade 8 next year. In social studies, also, this includes 1 retirement, 1 reduction. The impact on program, class sizes will go up. Our psychology class will need to maintain a priority enrollment. What does that mean? We will have to cap how many sections we offer for psychology. That's not IB psychology, that is our non-IB psychology class. The other impact at the middle school, class sizes in social studies will go up, but again, not over the secondary class size or class cap of 28. On the science level, we are recommending a 1.0 reduction of position. The impact on the high school will be that we will, many of our science class sizes in science will go up next year as a result of that. District-wide programs. In guidance, we are recommending a reduction of 1 elementary guidance counselor position so that the remaining 1 elementary guidance counselor will be split between 5 buildings. That means there'll be less opportunities for guidance lesson push-ins in classes in grades K to 5. This proposed reduction keeps the high school and middle school guidance offices staffed at their current levels. In E&L, we are proposing a reduction of 2.0. With that reduction, we have seen a decline in the number of E&L students. We can continue to meet all of New York State scheduling mandates for our E&L students. There may be more travel time for teachers as a result of shared staff, and we will be employing a multi-grade level band, which New York State permits as part of an an E&L program of 24 months. What that means is, if we have a student that requires E&L in grade 4 and grade 5, we will service those students together. E&L, for the most part, is done through a pull-out model. World language. This reduction of 4 positions also includes 2 retirements. There is a programmatic impact that we are recommending here. We are recommending that the elementary world language program, known as FLES, goes from 2 times per cycle to 1 time per cycle for all grades K to 5. The other impact, which is more due to enrollment, is that right now secondary Italian would not be offered. We are projected right now for enrollments less than 10 students, and our teacher that currently teaches Italian is also retiring. Art. We are recommending a 1.0 reduction, which will take place through retirement. What will be the impact of that? We will have class sizes at the secondary level. Those class sizes for art will increase. Physical education. We're recommending a 1.0 reduction in physical education staff. That impact has class sizes at the secondary level will increase. We will also have to evaluate any PE electives and health electives, which will be run based on enrollment. We have several part-time teaching positions that we are recommending a reduction in. We are recommending a 2.0 reduction in PE. That's a 0.8 music position. That's a part-time music position. A 0.6 theater position, and a 0.6 E&L and world language position. This still allows us to have all theater offerings to be taught by current ELA staff. All offerings at this point will be obviously enrollment dependent, and our group sizes for music lessons at the secondary level will increase. Special education. To start, it is important for everyone to understand that all of our special education programming is driven by the needs of individual students as determined by the CSE. The CSE process, for many of you in this room that know, is a collaborative meeting between parents and teachers to determine what the needs of a student are and what programs would best service those needs. Special education programming in Rockville Center will continue to be guided by the individual needs of students and the recommendations of the CSE, which also provides for an annual review of student progress and needs. Those annual reviews are currently underway at the secondary level and will continue to move through the elementary level. What does this mean in terms of planning? We have an ongoing commitment to inclusion. We will make sure that we are compliant with all New York State and federal mandates. And we will design programs, and we have designed a responsible program that supports students in the least restrictive environment and provides a free and appropriate education. Reductions, we are proposing the following reductions in special education, and this includes 2 retirees and 1 resignation. We are proposing a reduction of special education teachers, which is 7.8 positions. And again, that includes 2 retirees and 1 resignation. We are also recommending a reduction of 1 speech position. And again, like I said before, we are committed to providing services and supports as outlined by student needs and collaborations with parents and teachers. What is the impact of these reductions on the special education program? Our integrated co-teaching program, or ICT. Elementary full-day ICT is intact. Average class size goes from 4 to 5 students in each section to 6 to 7 students in each section, which remains well below state regulations of less than 50% of the students or 12 students. So if you can imagine a class of 24 students, an ICT, in terms of regulation, an ICT class could have up to 12 students with special education needs. We are not recommending, nor are we predicting, that we would need to meet that high level of student need in a class. Right now, based on our projections, and again, this is a moving target because the annual reviews are still taking place, we are anticipating that each section would contain between 6 and 7 students. We are also, and goes back to what I talked about before in terms of how we are structured. We do not have full-day co-teaching in every building, in every grade because of student need. We are proposing to transition to opening up 3 to 4 ICT sections per year, as opposed to building in 5 each and every year. Each year, we will look at the needs, determine the number of sections, and the location where the program should take place based on student needs and enrollment. That means we are recommending for incoming kindergarten that we have this discussion now, which means that we may offer integrated co-teaching at 3 or 4 buildings next year. These sections will be strategically located to support program stability and ensure services. At the secondary level, ICT remains intact and will continue to support students on a pathway to an advanced Regents diploma. Our ICT sections increased to an average of 8 students from an average of 6. And the proposed reductions in speech group sizes may increase from an average of 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 based on student needs. And again, most speech sessions are offered in groups of 5. That is a more typical way to write it on an IEP. Again, there is no proposed changes to anyone that is in a current ICT program. So if you are if your child or your students are in an ICT program at Watson, they are staying at Watson. If your child is in a program at Hewitt, they are staying at Hewitt. The change would occur with the incoming kindergarten. What does that mean in terms of special classes? Our special classes are classes that serve students with significant needs, and this is what we're recommending for next year. We know, based on our projections, that elementary special classes will need to increase. Currently, we have 3 812 classes this current school year. What does that mean? That means it is a small class with no more than 8 students, 1 teacher, and 2 teacher aides that are assigned to that class. There may actually be more staff in those classes, depend on the individual student need. So for example, you may have 8 students in a class, you may have a teacher, 2 teacher aides, and you may have a teaching assistant assigned to that class as well. Next year, we are projecting an additional 812 class will be needed to support the needs of incoming students. We will continue to run our 2 1212 classes. At the middle level, we currently run a 1511 class. That 1511 means you can have up to 15 students, 1 teacher, and 1 aide assigned to the program. We are also recommending 1 1212, which means you can have up to 12 students, 1 teacher, and 2 aides assigned to that program, and 1 812, which means that we will have a class of 8 students, 1 teacher, and 2. We continue to evaluate all of the needs on our special class recommendations. This is where we see a potential for change in terms of what the recommended student needs will be. At the high school level, all of our current programs, our 1511 program and our 2 sections of 1212 will remain the same for next year. I also want to reiterate that not every one of our classes at 812 or a 15 or a 12 always goes to the cap. Sometimes it gets close, but they don't all go to the cap in terms of student enrollment. Teacher assistants. We are proposing a reduction of teacher assistants to 35 district-wide using the following configuration. For special education teacher assistants, we are proposing reducing it to 19 total special education teacher assistants. This is based on our current review of IEPs, our current special education programs, and what we feel is necessary to support our special classes with teaching assistants. We want to recognize the outstanding job that our teacher assistants do. We know that our teacher assistants provide instruction to students, and we know that this is a difficult number to digest because, again, at the end of everything, there is a person. Our general education teacher assistants, we are recommending 16 general education teacher assistants to support both the testing centers at the high school and the middle school and our MTSS programs. One high school testing center would be assigned one teacher assistant. The middle school testing center would be assigned one teacher assistant. Hewitt would be assigned 3 teacher assistants. Wilson, 3 teacher assistants. Covert, 3 teacher assistants. Watson, 3 teacher assistants. And based on enrollment, Riverside would be assigned 2 teacher assistants. Clerical and confidential contractual employees. One reduction that we are going to do, actually all of these are based on retirements. We have one confidential employee that's been assigned to the TV studio. That employee is retiring and will not be replaced. That does not mean our TV studio will not be supported, because we do have other means to support our TV studio. We also have one building level clerical employee who will retire and not be replaced. This is in addition, like Ms. Rehak talked about, to the 2 clerical from central office administrations that are retiring and are not being replaced. All of the above proposed reductions are through attrition and not accessing. Other proposed reductions. These are other items. These are not staffing positions. We are recommending a 10% reduction in clubs based on the number of students assigned or that have volunteered for those clubs. We believe that this reduction in clubs will generate about a $40,000 savings. We are proposing reducing the second paid assistant coach in sports. That would be for varsity soccer, boys and girls, varsity lacrosse, boys and girls, JV wrestling, JV cheerleading, and both boys and girls JV volleyball. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. Okay. We're also requesting and recommending that we do not renew the lease with the synagogue that we currently have for Wilson to support the art and music rooms. We've had a decline in the number of students at Wilson. We can put art and music back in Wilson and be able to service that. So that's resulting in a savings of about $58,500. We are proposing reducing, not eliminating, student summer workers. That savings we anticipate to be about $35,000. We are proposing removing district funding for IB subject fees. So currently, as we stand right now, IB exams are more expensive than AP exams. The district historically has made up the difference of about $35 per subject fee. We are proposing to stop supplementing that for a savings of about $21,000. We are also proposing removing funding for Ashokan. Currently, our district funds the Ashokan trip for about $55,000. This has kept the cost down for parents, but it has resulted in an expenditure of $55,000 per year. We believe that removing the funding for Ashokan will generate a savings of $55,000. We are also recommending an instrument music fee, maintenance fee, of about $50 per student. We believe that this will actually result in an increase in revenue of about $50,000. What does that mean? Many districts, many surrounding districts, charge parents for when a student rents their music instrument. So what we're talking about is music instrument maintenance fees. We're also recommending a reduced funding for field trips, that we're in contact with our building principals, that we believe will result in a savings of about $15,000. So, I want to reiterate again, truly, for the people sitting in the audience, our employees, our parents, and our students, that I know that this is a difficult presentation to sit and listen through. I know that there are people in this room whose employment status are affected by the recommendations that I make. I do not make them lightly, and I do not make them without respect for the people doing the job. It is difficult. It is not easy to do, but we have an obligation for 2 things. Number one, we have an obligation to provide a fiscally balanced budget, and we also need, as Ms. Rehak talked about, to put this district on a more stable and sustainable footing financially. In terms of teaching positions, the total proposed reduction is 24.2 positions, 22 through excess and 2.2 through reductions, for a savings of about $2.9 million. Teaching assistants, we are proposing reduced 40 positions for a savings of $952,000. Administrative positions, we are recommending one for a reduction of $191,000. Facilitators, we are proposing reducing facilitator stipends for a savings of $210,000. Bus matrons, we are proposing reducing bus matrons except for those mandated by IEPs or 504s, and that will result in a savings of $62,000. What are our next steps? First, on March 26th, as Ms. Rehak stated, we will be doing a complete recap of the budget. On April 16th, we will have our preliminary budget hearing. On May 7th, we will have our budget hearing. On May 19th, we will have our budget vote. Those are the first steps for this year. What are we proposing to look at and discuss next year and beyond? We are recommending that we hold public discussions on the financial and programmatic impact of potential structural changes to address the structural issues we have in the way we're configured. That could include looking at potentially closing school. It could include looking at the impacts of potentially elementary rezoning efforts and a Princeton plan. All of those conversations will happen in public next year. That does not mean that we will potentially close a school, potentially rezone, or potentially implement a Princeton plan at the end of next year. All of these efforts require detailed public conversations and studies to make sure that we are saving what we think we're going to save, and we are providing the programs we know we need to provide. That's my presentation, Madam President.
Thank you. So this is a lot to unpack, clearly a lot of information. The process, as you know, the superintendent and the administration walks the board through the recommendations. I'm going to turn it over to my fellow board members in a moment to ask their questions and comments, and then we'll be happy to hear from anyone in the audience that wants to come up to address the board. So I will start with my first preliminary question. Obviously, there's short-term implications, and I'm assuming many of the questions and concerns will be short-term, based on short-term issues. But I actually want to start working backwards, so where you ended, Mr. Gavin, in terms of, it has been asked of us in previous meetings to look at these three situations or these three possibilities. So can you just briefly walk us through timelines for each of the three, closing a school, elementary rezoning, and Princeton plan, and the steps that would have to be taken by you in the district in order to analyze each of those three, please?
So I'll start off with the analytics that we would need to do in any of the three options. We would definitely need to talk about financial impacts and conduct an analysis. We would need to do a capital analysis, a budget gap analysis, a demographic study. Where do the students live? How long can we anticipate them living in those areas? We would need to do a building utilization study, which we have. We have a building utilization study, but obviously it would need to change based on what the conversations and the recommendations. We would need to have a proposed staffing impact study. And here's the big one, we would need to have a transportation analysis. In any one of these scenarios, you are talking about an increase in transportation. In most of these scenarios, you are talking about an increase in transportation. The timeline would be to start having conversation as early as the fall, with the analysis happening over the summer, so that we are prepared to open those conversations. Once we have discussed in public what the different options are, we would make a recommendation. That recommendation then, we would go over the recommendations, and then based on that, solicit input from the community through surveys. That would be a survey not only of parents and taxpayers, but obviously of faculty and staff as well. The information from that survey would give the board and the administration some good data on whether or not these proposed plans are something that the community would value and that the community may consider as a way potentially to address our structural difficulties. In terms of timeline, if we were going to do a Princeton plan, that would take, on my first guess, that would take quite a long time to do because there may need to be in any of these options construction. Not in every option, but in all of these things, we may need to build onto a building before we can move students into that building. That process is long, it would require state approval, and that would be a multi-year commitment of the district and the board to study and then fund and then develop that proposal. So that's my answer to that question.
Thank you. Just like when we were asking you to, and Ms. Rehak, to walk us through possible scenarios in terms of this budget process, we have asked you to do that as well over the next year, starting next year and then thereafter. So thank you for that. At this time, I will hold off on my other questions and turn it over to board members for comments or questions.
Certainly, these proposed reductions are painful, and they're not what any of us want to be considering, especially as we understand we've been asking more and more of our teachers and staff. It's a collaborative process. Callie said it best with her student board member report. We start with students. How can we provide them the best educational experience while staffing these programs appropriately? Last year, Mr. Gavin and Ms. Rehak, we closed a gap of $3.5 million. And we had been reducing staff through attrition, not replacing retirements. We offered retirement incentives. So had we faced the same gap this year as last year, we would not necessarily be in this position. Our current financial climate is accelerating what we've already been doing. You started earlier speaking about enrollment. Could you clarify, enrollment does not necessarily impact our tax revenue, but it does have an effect on our foundation aid, our aid from New York State, which we have been fighting to get our fair share of for a long time. Can you speak to that relationship and how the wealth ratio additionally punishes our particular home values?
Sure. Part of the foundation aid formula is based on enrollment and on the wealth ratio of the district. So while our enrollment is going down, our state aid would go down based on that formula as well, and the wealth ratio has gone up. Wealth ratio is based on the sales price of homes in the district. So 10 years ago, the sales price of the average home in Rockwell Center may have been $500,000, $550,000, and today it's about $940,000. So as that goes up, that also reduces the aid we get. So those two factors would drive down our aid. One of the things about Rockwell Center is we're considered a safe, harmless district. So the foundation aid formula says your aid can't go down. So if anything, it could stay the same. Fortunately, last year, the governor put a 2% minimum in foundation aid. So for 25-26, we got a 2% increase in our foundation aid because otherwise it would have gone down. For 26-27, in the state budget, in the governor's budget, there's a 1% minimum. We don't know if that will go up to 2% by the time the legislature finalizes the budget. It may, there's talks of it, but we don't know. So right now we have 1% increase in foundation aid. 1% on our foundation aid is roughly $126,000. So our foundation aid for state aid went up by $126,000 from 25-26 to 26-27. If it comes in at a 2% minimum, we'll receive another $126,000. We usually don't find that out. The state budget is supposed to get passed at the beginning of April. We know from the past several years, they've been passing it closer to late April, so usually after the budget's adopted. But I will keep the board apprised as there's progress on that.
Thank you. So you're talking 1%, 2% increases from the state, a 2% tax cap, expenses going up 5, 10, 20, 50% in some cases, depending on the expense. In terms of the unfunded mandates, which Mr. Gavin, you mentioned at a high level, some of these are very good ideas. Some of these are very important programs. Some of the unfunded mandates require automatic defibrillators, right? Those are good, they save lives. We would like some help from the state to pay for those. We would also appreciate the fact that one of the large changes to special ed increases 4 extra years of school, from used to be 18 for some of our students who use our special education programming. That's been increased to 22, age 22. So that is a significant increase in expenses with no help from the state at all to help us. Is that correct?
Well, in terms of FAPE 22, which is the mandate that you're talking about, many of the students that fall under that were allowed to stay until 21. So now it's not exactly a full 4 years. It is about a year extra where students are allowed to stay until their 22nd birthday. For some students, that might be a month more. For some students, that might be a full year more, depending on when their birthday falls and their age. So there is no funding for that, yes. There was during COVID, and then they took the funding away.
Okay, so on that note, those are mandates, right? What we do locally is integrated co-teaching, and that has been in the past few years. We rolled it out earlier in the elementaries. Now we expanded it to the secondary level. Can you speak to the class size changes that you are proposing with a little more detail for the ICT model that will remain for students as they
Sure.
are in schools now, and how it will impact incoming kindergartners?
Sure. So right now again, this change is based on, this is an average, because there will be some discrepancies based on where students are located, particularly on the elementary level. But if we go back to the slide, I do want to talk about, right now we have an average of 4 to 5 students in each, students with special needs in each of our ICT sections. We're anticipating that on an average, again, goes to 6 to 7 students in each section. That's on the elementary level, and again, that is below the state regulations and guidelines of the lesser of 50% or 12 students. We also are, in terms of kindergarten, what we're proposing to do based on where the students are enrolled, and that's going to continue to take an analysis, because we do have students that move in, that are not registered yet, that have not decided, to register or let us know that they have moved into the neighborhood. That still will require an analysis, but we are proposing offering ICT at 3 or 4 of our 5 elementary schools. And again, this will depend on 2 things. Number 1, where are the students located? And number 2, how many students in each of those buildings will require that service? Well, go ahead, Jackie, yep.
Yeah, and so that transition, because we've typically had 4 to 5 ICT sections per year, so that transition will start with incoming K. But again, it's still based on need and CSE results, so once we know from CSEs how many need ICT, then we'll really be able to form how many ICT sections we need for incoming K. So this is where we are based on what we know today, but that could change as the CSEs continue.
Right. No, I get that. I'm also thinking in terms of one of the students who spoke at the mic earlier about the new courses that we have added, right? We have added new teams, new programs, new supports, expanding MTSS. I'm thinking particularly about the new computer science classes, or can you speak to the impact of some of those new things that we have added over the last few years, particularly staffing some of these new courses?
Well, in the last 2 years, we've reduced, in terms of teachers, we've reduced about 8 positions district-wide in the last 2 budgets. So prior to this year, it would be about 8 teaching positions, and we've been able to offer new courses with existing staff. So in terms of computer science, we went from 1 computer science class to 6 or 7 new courses that we have added, including AP level courses that our students take. So if there is an impact on or if there's no proposal that we get rid of that particular class or classes, but that would impact potentially about 100 to 115 students that are currently enrolled for next year.
Okay. I'll let my colleagues take up the next questions with the caveat I'd like to potentially come back if I think of another one that they haven't asked.
Thank you. I'll just reiterate that this is no more difficult than for all of you sitting here, so I appreciate you coming. I you may doubt my sincerity, but parents, teachers, students, everybody, like, part of our job is to hear from you and try to craft our decisions based on what we're hearing and what balancing all the different needs of everybody in the community with the financial realities we're facing. So I appreciate everyone's engagement on a really difficult topic. I especially want to thank the students, both Callie, who is a board member, so is here, but always is so insightful and eloquent in her when she shares at each meeting, but also for the students who came to the podium. It takes a lot of courage to come stand in an auditorium full of people and advocate for what you believe in, and you also spoke so eloquently and had done your research, and your parents should be really proud, and as a district, like, this is the type of student we're creating. I think that's a testament to all the people sitting in this room as well. Before I get to my questions on the presentation itself, just to spend a little bit more time on the legislative budget that just came out. So just really briefly, for anyone who doesn't know, the governor puts out her budget, and then the two houses of the Assembly and the Senate collaborate to put out their budget. Both houses are advocating for upping the state aids back to 2%. They're also advocating for some other issues like helping to fund the zero-emission bus mandate. They are advocating to make, right now our pre-K is fully funded by state grant money, but they're trying to expand it to every pre-K student who wants it should get a free pre-K education, and so they are advocating that money is $10,000 per student is put aside to help fund that. So I bring all this up because your state representatives, there is an education committee in both houses. They are advocating on behalf of public education, and they are happy to hear from their constituents, and the more we can reiterate how tough of a position public schools across the island are, I think the better. And just as a board, I just wanted to say there is an opportunity for us to also sign on to a letter. I think we should consider doing that because that's our voice in Albany, and that's the way that we get sort of our interests heard. So that's just a general aside. I'm just going to move through the presentation like one slide at a time, effectively. I have a few comments, a few questions. I appreciate that what we're trying to do is maintain the integrity of what we're offering students, but also do it in a way that is responsible and sustainable in the long term. I think part of the reason we're in the situation we're in right now is because if we don't make what are really excruciating choices in this moment, problem is going to get worse down the line. It's not going to get better. But just a couple of more specific questions. If you could just, Jackie, I know you've said this at earlier presentations, but in the process of building the budget, right, you're putting in contingencies for a variety of things that we don't know how to anticipate. Could you just talk us through that one more time? I know you did it at the last meeting, but I think it's important to reiterate that.
Sure. So we do build in 2 teacher contingencies for classes. We're constantly watching enrollment and as registration takes place throughout the year, but with our 25 cap on elementary, we know we have some sections on the cusp of breaking, and a lot of times we have last minute registrations all summer. There's usually a good amount of them, so that could split and add another section. For example, in a building, if we have 49 students registered right now, it only takes 2 more students to then require us to add another section. So we watch those numbers, and based on how many are close to splitting, we'll put contingencies in the budget. So right now we have 2 teaching contingencies in the budget for the elementary level. We also have contingencies for tuitions and services based on student need. As we said, CSEs continue throughout the spring. You also could have people move in mid-year, so you have to build in some contingencies for unanticipated tuition and services. Right now, we currently have 3 built into the budget. That was actually a change. I had said we had 4, we reduced it to 3 based on an increase in pending placements. But typically speaking, districts will budget anywhere from 3 to 5 contingencies for that. So right now, we do have 3. That's something we'll still look at before we finalize the budget by March 26th, finalize our next proposed budget. We also, when I talk about health insurance is on a calendar year. We're on a fiscal year. So health insurance rate increases we get them usually at the end of November, beginning of December, and they're effective in January. So we have to make assumptions now for a budget on what we think that will come in at. I did have a slide in the last presentation on what rates have been over the past, about 10 years. And you can see it's just really all over the place. And it really ranges anywhere. I think we had 1 year where it was low, but most years are anywhere between 5 and 10%. So, and some years we're even over 10%. So we have to make sure we have that covered. A lot of districts will have some cushion in there. Right now we don't. I talked about that last session as well, last meeting, where I'm operating right at my budget. In fact, we're a little over budget in health insurance. So really trying to get that where we need it to be so that we can cover the expenditure when it comes in. So I did budget 10% for that, but again, that's an assumption. So we do have a lot of assumptions like that in there as well.
And to follow up, you may have noticed that the total proposed reductions add up to more than our gap of 3.2 million. That is exactly the reason why, is we're trying to make a sustainable budget here. We know that if we only cut to $3.2 million, that we will face the structural deficits again next year, and it will be compounded. So when we did these, we compiled these recommendations, we compiled recommendations that exceed our gap by about $1.5 million to hopefully be able to put in enough cushion for next year and for a variety of unanticipated potential issues.
Thank you. That actually, I think, trends right into my next question, because you also talked at the last meeting, and again, I hate to be repetitive, but not everyone is listening at every meeting. I think some things are worth repeating. One of the things you talked about is how our debt service structure and the bond that we had issued, years ago, we're making payments on that regularly, but we have to plan into when the building aid that we're getting from the state to offset those payments falls off. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The debt service. So the district has a bond from a project it did years ago, and it was financed over 30 years. The district receives building aid on that project over 15 years. So the timing of those two things aren't exactly aligned. So debt service has a direct impact on the tax levy calculation. So tax levy calculation, we always talk about 2%. Generally speaking, it is 2%, but there are exceptions to that 2%. So some of the exceptions are your capital, your transfer to capital, your debt service payments. Those increase what you're allowed to levy. So but at the same time, while those increase what you can levy, the building aid you get on those projects decrease what you're allowed to levy. So when we fast forward to when our building aid's going to fall off, since the building aid is amortized over 15 years, our debt service will remain the same, which increases the tax levy, but the building aid, which reduces the tax levy, is going to fall off, which means our tax cap is going to spike. Now, even though that's within the cap, you also still have to be able to pass a budget. So if the tax cap calculation comes in at 4 or 5%, your community may not pass that budget, even though that's within what you're allowed to levy. So with that said, we were looking at this, and when I had met with our fiscal advisors and we discussed when that time is coming, and it looks like in 2032-33 is when we'll have about 525,000 of building aid roll off, and then in 33-34 another 525,000 of building aid. So looking at our tax cap calculation, we know in those years they're going to spike. So we were talking about our transfer to capital and building that over the course of the next 6 years before that happens, and then that way when that happens we can drop our transfer to capital so that our tax cap calculation still remains roughly around that 2% number, and it's easier for taxpayers, and we can still be able to pay our expenses, our debt service.
I appreciate.
I'm sorry, one other
Yep.
thing I just wanted to mention, the 1.5 million that we built in over and above is about 1% of our overall budget. I just wanted to clarify that as well.
Thank you. So I appreciate the explanation. I think capital is one of those things it's really hard to sit in a room like this and say we're gonna save for capital work and look at people who we know whose positions are being reduced. Again, it's one of those unfortunate realities, like our buildings are very old, plus we have this added debt service component. If we don't plan into that, I think down the road, again, we're gonna be stuck with even greater expenses if we're not maintaining our buildings properly. So I appreciate the explanation. So just moving to the next slide really quickly, the slide that has the budget components without any reductions: special schools, instructional media, co-curricular athletics. You had mentioned equipment and supply reductions. I know you've been doing that in various areas. My question is, are those things that we don't really need, or are those things we're just delaying purchasing until we have the money or at least a better sense of where we are financially?
Well, it's not, if there's something we really need, we have to get it, but, so we didn't eliminate equipment and supplies altogether. But it does mean that we have to definitely look at what we're buying and make sure it's a need, and that's it. So, and I went over with all the building administrators and directors and their budgets that they submitted, and really went over those equipment items and said, what can we do without next year? Some things will be pushed to the following year. We will have to build some of that back in. Some things we can't wait. It has to be purchased. You know, we're on replacement schedules for all our tech equipment, so we usually have those leased, or we have payments each year, so those things have to still be paid. So it's really the things that we don't need. But one of the issues that we'll see, like when we talked about fund balance and where we operate, because we reduced all those budgets, people will be spending much more of their budgets to the full amount. So I also anticipate, like I said, what we'll be able to appropriate for 27-28 is going to drop. So us creating such a tighter budget is going to impact the following year the same way 25-26 is impacting 26-27. So this continues to snowball, and our gap last year was $3.5 million. This year, before the retirement incentive, was $6 million. So we really have to, start looking at our structure and making changes. We can't keep kicking the can down the road, unfortunately.
Thank you. Just a couple more, and then I'll probably let others also ask, and if I have any last ones, I'll come back to it. Can you just really quickly, I'm going to skip to the ICT program for a second. Can you explain just how it's structured currently at the secondary level? The elementary level seems pretty clear. The secondary level is a little fuzzier, because in an elementary classroom, it's just a classroom teacher and a co-teacher, right? At the secondary level, I think it shifts a little bit. Can you explain how that works?
Sure, Ms. Dalton?
Yep, I'm happy to do that. So at the secondary level, again, is driven by student mandates, but we'd also offer sections depending on that count. So for instance, in my current middle school model, we have 4 sections on a grade for the proportion of students, which then leads to a a student ratio of about 6 students. So by proposing, based on student needs, a reduction in the number of sections, then the student count in the classes would rise, but still be well below the mandate. So it's departmentalized by subject area, and it's full-time for that subject area, but it's just looking at the number of sections by student need. Same for the high school. So again, it's by student need and by specifically departmentalized, and we may run multiple sections for a course, and looking at the number of students who need that course, do we need 3 sections or 2 sections of that particular course? And just in doing our analytics of those, we're able to reduce sections. And again, student count in the class will increase from approximately 5 to maybe 8 students, 7 to 8 students in a high school ICT class.
Okay, my last question, and then just one comment. The reduction, or that's, the retiree that's not being replaced in the TV studio, just to reiterate, you said that's not gonna change any of the things we offer coming out of the TV studio, is that correct?
We anticipate being able to use other staff that we currently have that provide and have extensive knowledge of media that would be able to support those classes.
Okay. Actually, I lied, I have 2 final comments. One is the list of proposed reductions, other items for consideration. So the largest drivers of expense in the district are not these things, right? These are relatively small numbers compared to our overall budget. However, at this stage, I feel like every dollar means something. So maybe as part of the next presentation, I'm just curious if there's any other out-of-the-box things, like, you know, can Ashokan be put through BOCES and be reimbursable, or, you know, the lease on the synagogue, I think that's, if we don't need that space, I think that's good to take off our books. You know, other things, like if there's any business in the community who wants to help sponsor some of our business class field trips, or if there's ways to make the programs we are running, like the adult ed, you know, maybe we can expand interest by offering it in other towns. I know again, it's not big dollars, but I think any other ideas we can add that would help save money here and there would in the end, you know, make a big difference. And then the only other ask I have is, as part of the budget process is that it's always changing, right? As you're seeing what new expenses could come in, or, you know, if revenue increases unexpectedly, like we had the pilot program that came in, all sorts of things can change. I'm just gonna ask that as we're not approving this budget until May, and, you know, we have another full month before we adopt it. If there's any programmatic things that are coming up that you're like, oh, wait, you know, we should rethink this, or there's a different way to look at this, or something else changes. I know you're doing this already anyway with the administration of each building and as a cabinet, but just continue to consider any and all options that could, you know, make a difference. And I just want to thank you for all the work that you have all been doing on this. It's been a difficult road, but it's been appreciated. Thank you.
Go ahead, yeah.
So I just want to let you know, we do use BOCES for Ashokan. As far as, you know, other community programs, ACE, Project Grade, Adult Ed, I am already gathering numbers on all those things. So if there's something to be done there, I will incorporate it into March 26th presentation.
And again, these are recommendations for the consideration of the board. If there are, you know, the direction from the board is to, you know, consider these different types of things or come up with, we will certainly do so.
Thank you very much. So much to think about, and it is excruciating. Somebody used that word, and that's how I'm feeling right now. I would like to start by also thanking everybody for coming. I think to try to find the perfect balance of, for our taxpayers, our teachers, our staff, and most importantly, our kids. It's such a hard thing to figure out what's the best thing. And I think for me, as a non-teacher and as a parent of the district, I just want to start by saying that I think that our students' experiences are so tied to our teachers, and I recognize that so much. I think back to all of the great things that have happened for our children, and they're so tied to our teachers. So that's not something that I know any of us take lightly. That's the thing that's weighing the most right now. So I guess my questions and my comments are mostly about people preservation, as best we can. I have one question about FLES that's about program fidelity. Start with that. That's a simple one. I wonder if maybe not doing once a cycle K-5 is as advantageous for students than having it twice a cycle grades 3 to 5. Start maybe adding it later, more repetition. I think it's maybe a way to run that program with more fidelity. That's just something that stuck out to me in terms of if we want to run programs, as best we can. And then everything else that I have to say is really about, and it's in line with what Mrs. Grinner just ended with, but I'm not positive at this point that we've exhausted every possibility to preserve as many people as possible. So some of the things that are coming to mind are some things that are coming to mind. How can we utilize technology better and go green and cut down any expenses that are related to paper and textbooks and things like that? When it comes to the future, I know zoning and Princeton plans are longer-term things, so are bonds. They're not simple, quick solutions, but in terms of class balancing, when I entered the district in 2013, and it's easier when your students are kindergartners to make choices, I wonder if there's opportunities for not just considering where to run ICT and which students should go to which buildings, but if we're recognizing that we have structural things that we're contending with and we're running too many sections of certain grades, is there a way to, maybe increase class sizes in the later grades, grades 3 to 5? Maybe that's a teacher save there. Maybe there's a way to offer incoming kindergarten students buildings that have availability that would not tip us over in sections, so that we could keep our sections maintained in certain buildings, but we have room in others, and maybe that's a way to save a position. What other revenue generating programs can we bring? We did that with the RISE program when I was on this board at the beginning. It was a way to keep more of our kids in district. We offered programs for students that were in our district and that attracted students from other districts. Revenue generating programs are really important. I think they have to be put on the table. That cannot be a can we kick down the road. We have to look at that now. I think contingency budgets are important for section breaking, which again, I'm trying to mitigate, but I think we also have to have contingencies for our special ed, because we just don't know what our students will need, and I don't want to shortchange by saying we're cutting this many positions in that area from right now. Seems a little premature to me. I know it seems like a big number, it's scary. Overall, I know there's a lot of this is a cultural shift, and I think that that's hard for people. I want to make sure we're running all of our programs as best we can, but this is our home, and this is our culture, and these are our people. And for me personally, this is what I need. I need to hear from you. I would like to talk less, truthfully. I'm going to pass, but I need to hear what people feel, because it does matter. I don't want to make any of these decisions in a vacuum. It's really, really hard. So thank you for coming. Want to make sure we provide the best, safe, healthy, great environments for our kids, and continue to give them the education they deserve and what I feel we have provided in the past. So I just really hope we can keep exhausting just every possibility out there. Thank you.
Sure. So in terms of the zoning request that you talked about, that is a conversation that we would have to have as a board and a superintendent, because currently you go to where you are zoned in terms of, and for the majority of our students, with the exception of students that need, that have special needs or an identified medical need. If we are looking to change that policy, that's something we can have a discussion about. That would be something that we can continue to examine about the potential impact. I don't necessarily know if it would necessarily save a position. It might actually be more economical if we're moving kids that would, like you said, might not actually break a section. So I don't know if it necessarily in terms of saving a position. In terms of revenue gathering, we're definitely looking into a lot of different options. I know that Ms. Dalton has already started, even last year, talking to other districts about the outstanding special education programs that we offer here, and offering other districts the opportunity to send when when we have a program that fits the need. So I know that we do continue to service a number of students that come from out of district, for whom we get tuition payments from districts. That number has certainly declined over the last 5 or 6 years, but I know that that's something that Ms. Dalton is eager to explore. In terms of technology, that is also, in paper, we have already started looking at rationing paper in terms of how much you get prints and copies per year. So we've already set that parameter out there, so thank you.
Thank you. I have a lot of questions. I want to start with TAs and AIS. Over the past 3 years, the district adopted Keys to Literacy as the primary approach to literacy instruction at the elementary level. As I understand it, Keys to Literacy, which is a research-based framework, emphasizes explicit instruction in comprehension, vocabulary, writing, and text structure through highly structured, differentiated, small group instruction. As such, we have implemented station teaching or rotations and book clubs as part of our Tier 1 approach for implementing literacy instruction K-5, and these models require adequate teacher support to function well. Right now, as I understand it, that support comes from the classroom teacher or 2 teachers in an ICT setting, along with academic support teaching assistants and AIS providers. Over the past 2 years, we've invested countless hours and significant financial resources, including multiple high-cost consultants, training our teachers in this model. That investment assumed the necessary personnel would remain in place to implement the work with fidelity. With the proposed elimination of AIS positions and teaching assistants, I need to understand, how do we plan to maintain the integrity of Keys to Literacy model at the Tier 1 level? How do we expect station rotations and book clubs to operate effectively without the adult support the model requires? I'm also wondering, as I see, we are maintaining some general education TAs, but the numbers don't make sense to me. Hewitt and Wilson have double the amount of classes as Covert and Watson does. So even if we're assuming we're keeping a few TAs to support this model, which again, there's no way that 3 TAs are supporting 5 grade levels in literacy across a school with fidelity, Hewitt and Wilson cannot have the same number as Covert and Watson. That doesn't work for me. So if you could just explain to me what the plan is for this, because I really cannot reconcile the amount of money and time that's been invested into something that actually seems like it works, feels like it works. What are we doing with this? What's the plan?
So thank you very much. So when we went through proposed staffing reductions, we met with our elementary principals to discuss what is the way that we could support our current models of instruction. We know that the models are going to change. We currently, right now, in my estimation, are overstaffed at the elementary level, particularly with support. That means in terms of reading, mathematics, and teaching assistants. So what we did was we tried to build with the elementary principals, starting from zero, almost like a zero-based budgeting approach to providing an instructional model. So we sat with the elementary principals during the last few months, asked them, how do we provide what we have been providing, and then went about staffing it. So that's where you got your recommendations from. In terms of our commitment to literacy, we feel that the recommendations at this point still continue to provide that commitment to literacy, even with the staffing reductions. In terms of small group size and support in the classroom, we do have opportunities for small group instruction with this model. So for example, if we are using Hewitt TAs, we have what's known as the WIN period. What we would do is we would work with the AIS teachers, our reading and math teachers, our elementary principals, our classroom teachers, and our TAs to utilize that period to effectively provide small group instruction in the classrooms at a reduced price.
My question though is that that really, what the WIN period is really like tier 2, right? Like tier 1 instruction is the everyday, I'm teaching literacy today, I'm teaching math today. The teaching model that we have in place, station teaching, requires multiple adults in the classroom to do it at the same time. I understand this isn't going to impact tier 2 or tier 3 instruction to the same extent. Maybe it will a bit. My main concern is tier 1 instruction. That impacts 100% of children. If we care about literacy, if we care about math instruction, if we care about doing this the right way, and like I can tell you, like I have a daughter in 8th grade, I have a son in 3rd grade. I see drastic differences between the two of them. My son has had the station teaching, the rotations since kindergarten. Drastic difference. It's excellent, and I commend you all for doing that. But this is the part that I'm really stuck on. Like, as an educator, I feel very strongly about the fidelity of tier 1 instruction. This is where we lose children. This is where we have children who now need tier 2 instruction because tier 1 was not enough. And then, you know, like you look at the fact, right, oh, fine, we're taking the TAs out of the room. The teacher will deal with it themselves. They're going to differentiate small group instruction independently. When are we training teachers to do that? What's the cost of the training? We're cutting funding for professional learning. I mean, we're cutting $85,000 from consultant services. We're cutting $13,000 from conferences and workshops. Where is the time coming to train our teachers to make sure that they can do their jobs with fidelity? And then also, like, where are we rebuilding that trust? Because we've spent 3 years building this, and we are taking it apart to an extent. Like, now we have to pivot, we have to relearn. I just don't think that the product is going to be as good. And like, I'm not saying that maybe we are overstaffed here and there with TAs. I just don't understand how 3 TAs are going to support. I mean, in Covert, you have 12 gen ed classrooms with 3 people. I just don't see that. And in Hewitt and Watts and Wilson, it's double that. I don't know. I really just think we need to rethink the instructional model that we care about, what our goals are for literacy, what the money is that we have invested, and make sure that we are staffing in a way that we can teach with fidelity so that our children are making those gains. I feel like this decision and what we want are not, they're just not aligned to me. I can't see how it's going to work. My next question relates to special education. As I have said, and I have already said this, so this will not be a surprise, I have concerns about the plan to alter ICT. I feel it's premature. If we're saying that we're gonna look at rezoning or consolidating or moving to a Princeton plan, and this conversation is gonna start in the fall, I also understand that the conversation starting does not mean that this is going to happen instantaneously. My concern is that if we start with incoming kindergartners, we don't know all of the kindergartners. We only know the ones who go to our UPK, or maybe students who have been classified under CPSE. There's going to be many who are going to come to us as unknowns, and we cannot predict what their needs are going to be. So if we pick 2 or 3 schools to create ICT sections, there may be students whose home school is not those 3 schools. And then what do we do when we have this child who the gen ed classroom is not their least restrictive environment, who need more than that? We go to CSE, we recommend ICT, and then do they have to change schools? Do they stay in the school without the proper support? What happens to the kids? Again, these incoming kindergartners, let's fast forward 4 years. They're in 3rd grade now. They're classified. They're in 4th grade. They're in 5th grade. What do we do? Do they then have to leave the home school that they've been at for 3 or 4 years and go to another school? Do their parents deny services because they don't want their child moving? And I also wonder about, like, you know, importantly, like your impact on teachers. Like, I co-taught for 20 years. That partnership is essential to what's going on in the classroom. You have a kindergartner, we start in kindergarten, you have your teacher and your co-teacher because this year ICT is at Covert and Wilson. Next year it's at Hewitt and Watson. Is the ICT teacher moving buildings? Are they going to have a new partner? Like, these things just seem kind of like half-baked to me right now. And I understand the fiscal piece of it, that it makes sense and other school districts do this, but just because other people do it doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do or what we should be doing, especially because we have plans for larger conversations about how we are zoned. If we weren't planning those conversations or we didn't have all of these neighborhood schools, then maybe it's different, but I don't know. I'm not a fan of this. I don't think it's a great choice. I don't think it's good for kids, for families, or for our teachers. I also have questions about special education tuitions. Starting with BOCES tuitions, and this I might need a little bit of explanation for. This school year, 25-26, we've budgeted $1.9-ish million for BOCES tuitions. Looking at the appropriation status, it appears that we've spent about $660,000 on those tuitions, which I understand are billed every month. There's still almost $1.3 million left in that code. We're currently in March, which means we have, 3 or 4 payments left. I'm assuming they end, at the end of the school year in June, which should equate to about $400,000. If we have 1.95 million budgeted to the code, that looks like we're going to have about $800,000 left over in that line. Now, according to our projections for next year, the BOCES tuitions appear to increase by about $1 million. If we have almost $800,000 left over, or again, according to the appropriation status, that's what it looks like, why are we increasing this line from 1.9 to $2.7 million?
So our BOCES tuition right now, it doesn't cover through March. BOCES is billed on a lag. It doesn't get encumbered for the year, so it just gets entered as it gets billed. We do expect to be just under on our BOCES, but we expect to be over on some of our other privates and on our contracted services to be very over. So when, I know I also provided a fund balance projection, which showed our overall special ed being over budget. Also, when we do our budget for next year, as we've said over and over, we do zero-based budgeting. So it's not the prior year, and then we build next year. It is if a student is going to repeat, but we look at the actual students we're projecting to go to out-of-districts and what the tuition and services are going to cost, and that's how we build the budget. So as I said earlier, I do have 3 contingencies built in there. Other than that, I have a student name for all of the tuitions and services that we budgeted.
So about when will that appropriation status show how much that we're going to be under, how much we predicting to be under on that BOCES tuition line for this year?
I think if I remember correctly, the projection was about $200,000 on BOCES, and that we're taking that money and applying it to other privates and to general contracted services. The appropriation status report, that goes till way after the end of the year. We don't get billed for things until after June 30th, so we do payables based on what we expect to get billed for through the end of June, but really, you don't have a final report until we close the books and financial statements are done, because there's a lot of bills that come later, and especially in the special education area, a lot of services are billed, they're significantly late, few months later than the services actually take place.
So if we're projecting to be under then on BOCES, I guess I'm curious about these projections then for 26, 27, because it looks like, all of them are increasing, maybe it looks like about $5,000. So 5%, I think some are a little bit under, some are a little bit over based on that. But if we know we're going to be 200 under this year, is that figured into next year's projection? Because like it's saying here, we're going to spend 1.8, but really we're only going to be spending 1.6. That's what I'm hearing you saying. So I'm wondering then how that 200,000 is factored in for next year. Like, are we just rolling that 200,000 over and adding to it? Because like I just feel like with these budget lines, and I said this to cabinet in an email, that we don't have a dollar to waste here, or a dollar to think that we're going to use if we're not going to actually use it, because every dollar is a person, every dollar is program. So is that 200 just rolled over? Like, where is this million coming from?
No, funds that are left over are not rolled over. As I talked about when I talked about fund balance, the money left over at the end of the year goes into fund balance for the total budget as a whole. Part of that we then appropriate to the following year. It's not earmarked for a certain thing. It goes into the revenue side of the budget, whatever we appropriate. Whatever we don't appropriate, if we have over and above, last year we didn't, we had to reduce reserves to meet our appropriated. But if we did have over and above what we appropriate, it would then go into either reserves or your unappropriated fund balance. As far as, again, special ed budget, the BOCES, yes, we're coming over. Our other private tuitions for special ed, we're going to be over budget. Net overall between services and tuitions, we are over budget in special education for 25-26 based on the last projection.
No, I understand that. My question is, I'm looking at the projected tuitions for out-of-district placements for 25-26. It says here $1.8 million. Next year, it says $2.8 million. I'm hearing that we're not actually spending $1.8 million in BOCES tuition. We're spending closer to 1.6 because we are $200,000 over. My question is, does this 26-27 number, 2.8, account for the negative $200,000, or are we, because to me, it just looks like we've taken the tuitions from this year, rolled them to next year, and approximated about a 5% increase. But if we're $200,000 under this year, these numbers won't be correct. And I think that's my larger concern with these out-of-district tuitions, is that I guess I understand there's a little bit of guesswork because we don't have all of the information. My concern is that we are overestimating these.
So again, we do zero-based budgeting. So for all of them, with the exception of 3 contingencies, I have a name that goes with the tuition I'm budgeting. Yes, when we build the budget, we do not have the increases for tuition. It was an assumption. I received the tuition increases just a couple weeks ago from BOCES, and it is at 4.9%. I compared the increases for BOCES to what I was budgeting, and we're in about a $7,000 difference from what I budgeted and what actually came in. I don't have the projected tuitions or services for any private or other contracted services. So those I don't have, and those are still based on assumptions. But again, other than the 3 contingencies, I have names that go with every tuition and service in the budget.
Okay, so then these tuitions then for BOCES are 100% correct for next year. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. Like, part of my job sitting on this dais is I have a fiduciary responsibility to the community. And I need to make sure that I understand these numbers, and I don't understand them. I'm sorry if you feel like I'm being rude or I'm being too much, but I need to understand what this is saying, and I cannot make sense of some of this math. Like the private school tuitions, again, like we budgeted $1.3 million from them, but our tuition, and next year, like we're budgeting 1.2, but the tuition spreadsheet you provided says that we're going to owe 1.6. So like that math doesn't make sense to me either. So I'm going to leave this here for now. I'm not going to perseverate on this, but I would like to see a spreadsheet where the numbers add up and I can see the story that's going through them. With special ed, also, like I have concern about the number of out-of-district placements we have. We're projecting a considerable amount of students. The contingencies, I understand that. I would love to see us really do an analysis of our out-of-district students, what programmatic needs they have, and figure out how we can design to bring our students back in district, with the understanding there's always going to be students whose needs we cannot service here. But I'd like to get as many students back as we can, and not just because they're a tuition, but this is where they live. They should be in schools with their peers, and that's really my impetus there.
I would like to add, just to understand something about the budgeting for special education for students both in district and out of district. The CSE process is a rolling process throughout the school year because we are responsible to ensure our students are making meaningful growth. So with that, no matter what placement a student is residing in, we continually come back to the CSE throughout the school year for any of our students and make adjustments to needs. So when you look at our students in BOCES placements or in any placement, there are fluctuations and increases in their need if additional services are recommended throughout the school year. So it's very hard to account and say when you start to see the bill, which is on a lag, that we will come at exactly as we're predicting, potentially 200,000 under in BOCES, where I know, because we visit the students and work with our families, that we have evolving needs for our students. And again, that's even in district for our students as we may increase a specific service or move from a consultant teacher model to ICT. All of these have financial implications. And our commitment really is and continues to be on making sure our students are successful alongside their peers, receiving a free and appropriate education in the least restrictive environment. And I agree in constantly analyzing our student needs and looking for building our programming for our students in district. That's why we're expanding our 812 classes and looking at tuitions that come in for our greenhouse has also been a wonderful emotional supportive environment, as well as the Twilight program we started. So we'll continue to look at our students and where we see trends and similar needs, create those programs for it. But my commitment is to each individual child and their family to be sure that they have what they need to make the growth that they deserve to make.
Thank you. I also have a question about LESS or FLES, world language at the elementary school. It's recommended that students have at minimum 75 minutes of instruction in world language a week. I know that we previously had world language 3 times a cycle. It was reduced to 2 times a cycle, and now we're seemingly trying to reduce it again. Again, just a point to ponder if world language is something that we care about. You know, New York State has a new portrait of a graduate, which has emphasis on global citizenry, on communication. This to me feels like an unnecessary cut. I mean, we talk about being inclusive, we have a diverse community. I don't know how I feel about decreasing world language any further than it is, because we already aren't doing it to the standard that's been set by the professionals who oversee world language. So I think that's something we need to look at. We know young learners learn through repetition, 1 time in a 6-day cycle for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I'm not sure what we're getting out of that. You know, to Mrs. Hackett's point about really looking through the budget and thinking about the things that we do and where we can save, I also have concerns about the IB program, which I know is probably not popular to many people in the room or in the community. IB is very expensive to run. It costs us over $300,000 a year to run the IB program. And I understand that some of our recommendations are to make cuts to facilitators and coordinators that oversee IB. I don't know the intricacies of IB and how much those facilitators and coordinators are needed to run IB and MYP with fidelity. So I think I need to understand a little bit more about if we discontinue these stipends, what does that do to the program? Can we still run this with fidelity? Like, what happens when we don't have these anymore?
So in terms of the reduction of facilitators and the MYP coordinators, we believe that we can run the programs, offer the classes, and offer a robust number of college-level classes, both AP and IB at the high school level, and do so with fidelity. We have 2 very well-versed administrators on staff that know IB, both the MYP and IB diploma program inside and out. So we feel that we have expertise here on staff that can provide the guidance to both the teachers and the administrators in the building to provide that program with fidelity.
And I guess my next question really revolves around the efficacy of IB in itself, where I know that there is a lot of debate about IB and AP and which one is better. I understand IB, I understand what IB is versus AP, where you have a diploma program versus you kind of have single one-offs that students can elect to take. And I've heard over and over that IB really teaches our students to think and it really prepares them for college. But I feel like I have to challenge that because I think our teachers teach our kids to think and our teachers prepare them for life after Southside, and they can do that with or without an IB program. I've heard from many parents in the district, and again, being an educator who has worked in schools that have AP, so maybe I have my bias there, I'm sorry. I think AP is more widely accepted by colleges. I know there are many students who have had many of their IB credits accepted. There are students who have not. We have AP, we have dual enrollment, and I think in the financial times that we are in, I don't know. I don't know if it makes sense to spend $300,000 a year to run a program, which is essentially like a company that we're paying to run their work when we have educators who can design and who can facilitate very high rigor classes without that expense. And I do understand the transition from IB to AP. There will be a cost, like people have to be trained. That's a one-time cost. And I do think it's worth thinking about the efficacy of that program. And I know this is what we've always done, but just because we've always done it doesn't mean that we should continue doing it if it's not what is best for kids. So I want to just put that out there. I'm sorry that I have so many questions. I have just 3 more things. AIM programming. I understand that AIM program is frozen for the rest of the year. Are you able to speak to that at all? I mean, I understand that many of our PTAs raise money and have already voted to spend money specifically for AIM programs, and now there's no more district funding for that. What does that mean for our PTAs and for all of the money that our parents have donated with the expectation that our children are going to have access to these programs?
I mean, this just came up today. As far as I know, it's not frozen. I know we're having discussions about it tomorrow and Monday. But we do have a budget, and they have used the entire budget. And we still, while they do fundraise and pay for half of the AIM program, we pay for the other half. And we do get aid back, but it's on a 1-year lag. So since they've now met their full budget, in order for me to fund the other 50%, me, the district, to fund the other 50% of these programs, I have to find the money somewhere in the budget. It will impact our fund balance this year. I have to find it from someplace else to pull it over because I still do have to cover the costs for the rest of this year. So that's something we're gonna have to talk about because as you know, it's a very tight year and I don't just have the funds available in other lines and it's being pulled from something else to cover the expenditures. So with that, that's something we have to talk through and work out. Like I said, this just came to me and I said I'll meet with them, with Mrs. Mark tomorrow or Monday.
Great. Can you just keep us updated on
Can
that
you just
conversation,
update us
please?
on the next meeting as to that? Thank you.
Absolutely.
We can provide that as one of the updated components of the budget.
Thank you.
And then my last comment is just really about fund balance, and I brought this up at the last meeting. You know, I understand that we're at 3.45%, which is low. I feel like earlier in the presentation, there were comments like made related to previous fund balance over the past decades that we've always kind of had a low-ish fund balance. And I don't, you know, I hope that we're not pointing fingers or blaming, you know, Mr. Bartels. I don't think that that's really right or fair to make that point. I mean, according to our fund balance charts, our fund balance was the highest it ever was when he left us last year after 25 years of service. And I understand that that fund balance would have been higher, but we did pull a lot of money from that to pay for the middle school roof and to pay for the field. And I understand that the district's philosophy over time was that we kept fund balance at that level because the money went to the students or it went back to the taxpayer. And like I said at the last meeting, I understand the need to build fund balance, and I understand that we're in different times than we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I understand that we have rising costs that we've never really had before. But I don't agree with a significant jump from 3.45 to 4.0 or however close we're gonna get. I'd rather see us build that gradually so that we have funds to fund the things that we need next year for our kids. It just feels like it's a large amount of money, and again, I'm not saying I don't agree with building some savings. Like, we do have issues. We had the air conditioner this year. That was a problem. We can't predict what's going to happen, but it's like if I take all my money and put it in the savings account, how do I live? And that's the piece that I'm worried about. Like, we have to cut, but I just hope we're cutting in a way that's going to be able to help us maintain our programs and to make sure that the instruction aligns with what best practice tells us. And those are all of my questions right now.
So, one thing I just want to clarify, I didn't say for the past 10 years our fund balance has been very low. I said for the past 10 years we've appropriated 2.8 million to the following year's budget. I actually didn't comment on the level of fund balance for the past several years. But one of the other things I'll say is, yes, best practice is 4% in a fund balance projection because the projection changes from month to month. So while it's 3.98 based on my February numbers, I still have several months left of the year to operate. So I don't know that it will be there at June 30th. So I cannot, as a financial advisor, tell you to appropriate more than 1.6 and start drawing down savings for the following year's budget to fund regular, ordinary expenditures. Just like in your personal finances, your savings very often are used for unexpected expenditures, not usually for recurring regular expenditures. You have to have recurring regular revenue to meet those expenditures. So I'm trying to give advice to the board and the district on what to do. I cannot advise to appropriate more for regular recurring expenditures. It would not be financially prudent. So I understand as far as the levels, and again, I was asked, is this exactly where we're going to be at the end of the year at this 3.98? I can't answer that. I don't know that. I know this is what I'm projecting right now, but we have several months left of the school year. So based on that, 1.6 is what I'd be comfortable appropriating with that I think we will have from leftover funds without going in to savings. Again, that is a decision that can be made. I said it earlier, can absolutely appropriate more. I don't believe it's the financially prudent answer. I don't think it addresses any structural issues, so that would be my recommendation. But of course, that is something that the board can look at and do.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up two issues that I know we have talked about at previous meetings that you could just maybe give us a quick recap in terms of uncertainty around federal funding, changes at the federal level with the Department of Education. Is that part of any contingencies that we are building in here, given the sort of potential changes down the road to those title grants and title funding?
Well, Ms. Rehak talked about this a little bit when she was doing her presentation about fund balance, where she said there has been some level of uncertainty. We haven't seen any drastic cuts, but one of the ways that we would use some of that undesignated fund balance was if there was a change in federal funding. That funding currently provides a lot of programming for special education. It provides a lot of support for students in our title programs, Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV. So in order to be able to potentially absorb that, not that I'm anticipating that it would happen, but we did hear, especially last spring, we heard a lot about the closing of the Department of Education, and we heard a lot about the possibility of the federal government not funding title funds. So one of the things that we have calculated, and it's part of our recommendation, is that we would recommend being as close to 4% as possible, so that if in the event something changes, and the way things seem to be changing pretty quickly, we can anticipate something's going to change. But right now, we would anticipate that, we would request that some of that undesignated fund balance, that is a potential use for any potential changes in federal funding.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next budget presentation, you'll incorporate the feedback from tonight, plus what we talked about and what was planned originally, right? Right, thank you.
Correct.
We're going to turn to policies, and then opportunity for visitors will be following right after that, okay? Currently, no, Mr. Greenfeld's currently at stage 1. We have 56, I can't see, 58, 61.
56,
District
61.
Wellness. Any comments or questions?
This is
I'll get to you as soon as I
5661.
can. Thank you. Comments or questions on?
Copy of, this is the allocation of Title I, Part A funds in the district for non-instructional business operations. Yep.
Okay to move this?
Yes.
I'm going to ask respectfully that you let me get through this, and I'll get to you as soon as I can. Thank you. Also, currently at stage 1, 7420 placement program for interscholastic athletics. We had held this at the last meeting.
So we had discussion 2 meetings ago on the list of sports that were included. There was some board discussion about not having to reopen the policy every time a sport changed. And so we have taken that line out and added the line that you can see in the red. Student athletes in grades 7 and 8 may be considered for a high school team if there is no middle school team for that sport, which is in keeping with the current athletic director, Mr. McGuire's position.
Okay, thank you.
I also just wanted to quickly say, just because we did have Charlotte come and ask the question, while I appreciate her perspective, the way the current policy is set, and Mr. McGuire reiterated he thinks this is the best practice approach, is that the real issue is whether, A, the student is able to compete at that level, but also they're weighing very heavily the number of high school students that are looking to play the same sport. And so at this stage, the preference is, because most of our sports are almost oversubscribed and we have so many students, even the students that are making the team, you know, are competing for playing time and to get an opportunity. So he feels that having a younger student potentially take the place of a student in the high school who's trying to play for their high school team is not worth that trade-off. So I just wanted to give an answer because I know she had asked the question.
Thank you, appreciate that.
I'd just like to make a comment again. I still think that this deserves further reflection. I don't think this policy is in line with the district's philosophy of giving children opportunity to pursue the highest level of rigor that they are able to achieve. We accelerate every single child in the middle school, regardless of readiness. Yet you have children who are ready to play varsity sports. I mean, I think we currently had a child last year in 8th grade who was on the national team for lacrosse, could have very easily played with the varsity team and made an impact. To me, and again, my opinion is what it is, varsity sports are about winning. It's about excellence. Middle school is for everyone. JV can be for everyone. But I think it's really hard to look at a kid who has the potential to play and then tell them, no, sorry, you can't. That feels really hard, especially when in everything else that we do in this district, we push kids many times into spaces that is too rigorous for them. So I'm going to say that again, I don't agree with this policy, and I really would ask the board to reconsider and align it to the philosophy of the district. And if that's no longer the district's philosophy, then I think we need to look at accelerated for all and IB for all and everything for all that we do.
So we'll currently, here's what I'm going to ask Mr. Gavin. Can you consult with Mr. McGuire again and just give us a report? I think athletics was originally supposed to be part of the presentation for next meeting.
Yep.
And we'll readdress it then. Are we okay to move it to stage 2, or we want to hold it at stage 1? I'll defer to the rest of the board on that.
I mean, I'm fine I'm fine to move it. We'll still have opportunity to discuss it next
All
time.
right, so Mrs. Celebrity, we're moving it to stage 2, and then you'll give us feedback from the athletic department again. Mr. Gavin, thank you. Currently at stage 2.
Yeah, I'm sorry, can I skip backwards, actually? So at stage 1 is 5661, which is the district wellness policy. So I misspoke earlier.
Oh, that's okay.
So the district wellness policy has some significant alterations. You can see the redacted part, and Ms. Dalton and our council have been through to make sure it's all in compliance with the cited state standards and statutes.
Thank you. Are we okay to move that to stage 2 at the next meeting?
Yes, district wellness to stage 2.
Yep.
And then we can pick up at stage 2, which was the Title I Part A funds.
Got it. Thank you. Okay to move that one to stage 3?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we have 5660, school food service program, lunch and breakfast. Okay to move that to stage 3?
Yes, this has been through with the governor's free lunch plan. We have gone through with Ms. Rehack, Ms. Dalton, just to make sure that our policies are in compliance.
Thank you.
Good to move.
And then currently at stage 3, we have the annual reorganizational meeting. Can we move that to approval for the next meeting?
Yes, that's just the date change per state statute.
Okay. Being that we have many people waiting to address the board, Mr. Gavin and fellow board members, are we okay to forego our opportunity? Yes? Or does anybody want to speak before I open the mic?
I do want to just
Yeah,
say a
that's
couple of
fine.
quick things. I apologize to everybody, okay? If I would have said them earlier during my first, opportunity for questions. I just want to offer my perspective on how I'm approaching a really difficult situation. And I also just want to address a couple of quick items that came up. So just to offer an alternate perspective on the IB program, I understand the criticisms of it. I understand that it costs us money. I will also just offer that as a program, I think it has a lot of valuable elements. And without getting into all the details, some of the courses that you will take, kids will have the opportunity to take through IB do not exist in the same way at the AP level. Most notably is TOK, which every student, I shouldn't say every student, a lot of students who take it find it opens their mind in a different way that they've never had the opportunity to engage in that type of thinking or just exploration. It's, I think, a great course to prepare them as they go off to college, where they have to do a lot more independent thinking. I think another huge component of the program is the fact that throughout all of the IB classes, there are the independent assessments, which require some research and writing skills that, yes, in theory you can get in an AP class, but you don't always, it's not built into the structure of an AP class. And as teachers who are teaching for AP exams are like trying to get through their curriculum, it often falls by the wayside. I also just totally anecdotally, but as we've been on our college search, every school that I've spoken to has equally recognized IB and AP. What they give for credit varies, but that's true of AP level courses as well. And very often, whether you take AP or IB, the credit granted, depending on the school you're going to, the credit granted either only really qualifies you to take a more advanced course in that subject. It doesn't necessarily allow you to skip it altogether, particularly if it's in your major. They really don't look to give you credit for some of the more advanced coursework. So again, it all varies by experience, but I did feel the need to at least explain why I think that IB program is valuable. The only other thing I wanted to just say really quickly is I'm looking around the room, and I didn't get a chance to say it earlier. I see teachers that all my kids have had. Some of their favorite teachers are sitting in this room, okay? And I am not up here because I am looking to cut staff. That's not our goal, but part of our responsibility being up here is to really look at all of the factors that have to be considered to make this district sustainable for the future. And there are some very real challenges that if we don't make hard choices now, okay, we are really going to be having even harder conversations down the line that will impact our kids, that will impact our staff, that will impact our community. It's the unfortunate reality we're sitting in, but that doesn't mean that we don't value the teachers that are sitting here. I'm pretty sure everyone up here can look out in the audience and see someone who made a difference in the life and the education of their child. And so I thank you for that. And that's it. Thank you.
I just really quickly, if I knew we were skipping this, I would have said this before, so I'm
It
sorry.
wasn't my intention, I just
No,
want to.
it's fine. Just to say, 2 years ago, I completed a Master's of Education in Ed Leadership from Harvard. And I was privileged to study under Dr. Jim Honan, who's a senior lecturer at the Ed School. He's a faculty member at the Harvard Kennedy School, and he's a nationally recognized expert in strategic finance, governance, and mission-driven resource allocation. And he taught us that a budget is not simply a financial document. It's one of the clearest expressions of an institution's mission and vision. The real work lies not in assembling the numbers, but in ensuring that those numbers tell a coherent story about our goals. Strategic resource allocation demands that every line reflect what we value and what we are striving to achieve. A district's budget should make its mission visible. The storyline should be unmistakable, revealing how our resources advance our instructional priorities and the vision that we have set for our students. Our mission and vision call for innovative learning experiences, strong character development, and an inclusive community where every student can discover their potential. Those aspirations require coherent investment in the structures that support high-quality instruction and equitable access. I fully understand that declining enrollment requires appropriate staffing adjustments, including not replacing some retirements and potentially making reductions in certain areas. However, within that context, I'm concerned that several of the excesses that are being recommended run contrary to our core commitments. At the elementary level, it's difficult to see how we maintain Tier 1 instruction with fidelity when the support structures that model depends on are proposed to be reduced, and it's unclear how the potential shift to offering ICT in only certain schools advances our stated commitment to inclusivity. As such, I don't believe the budget as it stands fully reflects our mission or best serves our students, families, or staff, and I think we need to reevaluate some of our choices with clearer alignment, stronger rationale, and a more deliberate connection to our stated goals and the resources we allocate to achieve them. Thank you.
Before opening the mic to visitors, I just want to say quite simply, I do not question or doubt for 1 second the focus and commitment and the priority and focus on students, anyone sitting to my left up here, and certainly anyone sitting to my right. We may have differences in terms of how we're going to get there, but not 1 second do I ever question your commitment and focus to students, and I thank you for all the work. At this point, I will open the mic for visitors. The public is reminded to address questions or remarks to the board through its president. It's requested to refrain from making any direct references to students or staff members that could be considered critical of their performance or their character. Such references to individual students or staff members are inappropriate in a public forum and should instead be conducted in private conversation with appropriate members of the staff. The public is asked to state their name and address, and please limit your time to 3 minutes.
Leslie Danino, Rockville Center Teacher Association President. Good evening, members of the board and administration. Before we talk numbers, projections, or percentages, we need to talk about students because the decisions currently being proposed will directly harm them. When staff is reduced, class sizes will increase sharply and students will lose small group instruction and targeted support. Classrooms will have increased numbers of students with IEPs and decreased staff, which will make it harder for all students to receive individualized feedback and support and to meet each child's unique learning needs. These are not abstract budget lines. These are children sitting in our classrooms every day trying to learn in an environment stretched too thin. Cutting 25 positions and half of the TAs, 40, impacts students. You are saving $4.4 million on a $3 million issue, as said tonight, a surplus of $1.2 million. If we are so overstaffed in our schools now, why is the support constantly being pulled? Talks of limiting world language instruction in elementary schools removes an important opportunities for students to develop language skills and cultural awareness at the age when they learn them best. Excuse me. The proposal that ICT programs may not be available in all elementary buildings forces students to be moved or separated. This reduces support for students with IEPs, increases class sizes for all students, and eliminates consistency in instructions. Siblings could even be separated across buildings, something this district has already learned in the past was not best practice. It is also important to note that we have requested meetings to work collaboratively with the board to discuss these changes and their impact on students based on our firsthand knowledge, and these requests have been denied and the correspondence have not been included. I would like to address how we got here. We are being presented with the justification of financial stress. However, RVCTA conducted a financial analysis reviewing the district's ST3 reports over the last 3 years. That analysis shows that the fiscal stress they are claiming started this year. This is how this so-called crisis began. There is no evidence of a prolonged history of financial hardship. We have also repeatedly requested a detailed line-by-line presentation of this year's budget and the projected budget, and those requests have gone unanswered. Transparency is essential when decisions will directly affect students. The numbers in the proposed budget simply don't make sense. The math doesn't math. Special education projections show a huge increase next year, even though you said in a presentation that students are aging out and a new small class is being created in district. How does this add up? In prior years, fund balance reports were released promptly in January, yet we have not seen a fund balance report since before the spring of 2024. Before the previous administration left, $2.5 million was pulled from fund balance for field projects, yet fund balance is not down by $2.5 million. Where will fund balance be at the end of this year? Increasing or decreasing? Why are we being asked to go to 4% reserves in a single year rather than building it responsibly over time? Funding reserves by cutting staff and programs is unacceptable. Educators are being asked to consider a salary freeze next year, yet there already is a give back through our salaries next year. Asking for more is unfair and punishes the people who work directly with students while ignoring the real problems in the budget. When the superintendent first came to this district, he said RVC is one of the best districts, and what makes it best is its people. That remains true. The strength of this district is its teachers, staff, and programs that support students. Cutting these is not best practice. It is actively damaging to students in the community. And I want to leave the board with clear questions the community deserves answers to. First, if this district is truly in financial crisis, why does the RVCTA analysis of the ST3 reports not show it? Second, why is the district cutting frontline workers, the people who matter most to children, to solve its alleged problems? Third, if the financial numbers actually do support these draconian cuts, why have repeated requests for clarification, including detailed line-by-line budgets and fund balance reports, gone unanswered? We would like the actual expenditures for total salaries for the current school year, not what was presented on January 29th, which was projected amounts. Why hasn't the board even responded about the charter school resolution when 17 local boards have signed on to this? This impacts the budget as stated this evening. This proposed budget does not support students. It weakens classrooms, larger class size, reduced programs, diminished AIS and ICT support, and cuts to opportunities like world language will directly harm students. The community deserves full transparency. Present this year's budget and the exact proposals clearly so the public understands the real impact of these decisions. Morale in this district is the lowest I have seen it in 30 years, and these proposals are only making it worse. Once programs are cut and educators are gone, the damage is not easily undone. Some positions will take decades to restore, and some will never return. The decisions being considered now will change this district for years to come. Rockville Center became one of the best districts because of its programs, its educators, and its commitment to students. Those are not extras. They are the foundation of this district. If we truly believe this district is one of the best, we cannot weaken the very thing that made it that way. Our students and this community deserve transparency and leadership that puts their education first. Thank you.
Mike Cosgrove, 118 Brower Avenue. So this upcoming June, our third and youngest child, Molly, who you met earlier tonight, will be graduating. And with that, it closes 20 years within the school district. Wanted to take a much-deserved moment to say thank you to all the teachers that were part of their lives during those 20 years. Just ballparking it here, but there have been close to 100 plus of them that were directly part of their school time. These teachers have instructed, guided, and challenged them to be their best. They have provided support, kindness, and even many shoulders. There are even several of them that have taught all three of our children, which is amazing. And what else is amazing? No, that's not the right word. Absurd is better. It is absurd to think that because of inept financial mismanagement, or construction costs, or healthcare costs, or because the governor didn't give us enough money, or enrollment is down, or house prices are up, that any one of those 100 teachers or their counterparts will be losing their jobs. During the most recent Board of Ed election, one of the themes stated was, stay the course. Let us finish what we started. We have a strong group together that we could get things done. Really? This is the result you were talking about? Really? How is it possible that we are here now with everything crashing down and you all had no clue? Or you did and were just skipping past the graveyard hoping that it wouldn't get this bad? I don't know which one is worse. As a group, you failed. A main focus at all these meetings that we hear all the time is it's all about the children. Please spare me. There is no way you thought about children that have failed this bad. You have sat up there for far too long forgetting what it's like down here. I'm confident that if you were not up there and you were here having to listen to all this nauseating spin, that you would be just as angry and lined up waiting to ask what the heck is going on. And to top it off, you're going to ask for more money. Plus, you want everyone to believe that you are all the right ones to fix this mess. Man, that's a very hard swallow. What assurances could you possibly give that now you know what needs to be done and you are capable of getting there? As I wrap this up, I would like to end as I began. On behalf of our kids, Carter, Caroline, and Molly, June and I would like to thank everyone who was a part of their lives, and we want you to know that all of you are in our hearts and prayers.
One for the school board.
Roxanne Rizzi, 55 Kennedy Avenue. I just wanted to speak to the ICT breakup. It's not 12 or 50%, it's a 40-60 split or 60-40 split, not to go over 12, correct? State? Is that state?
It's the lesser of 50% of the class, no more than 12.
I thought that, I just pulled it
That
up
is
to
the-
make sure I was right. It said 60-40 state mandate.
It's the lesser of 50%, no more than 12.
Okay. Anyway, I would like to say before I go any further, because this is not for me, but this is just what I observed, and it's not the first time. I'd like to focus first on professional decorum and documented facts rather than personal attacks. Tonight, I've witnessed disrespectful behavior such as eye-rolling, dismissive, and contemptuous facial expressions from people sitting on the dais. You don't have to look around. You should maintain respectful interactions with all board members. You don't have to like what they say. I would like to emphasize that such actions can be perceived as intimidation or a disregard for opposing viewpoints, which breaks down collaborative discourse. With that being said, we are parents, taxpayers, and members of this community. And what we have been witnessing is a failure of fiscal stewardship. The district's financial crisis did not happen overnight, and vague explanations are no longer acceptable. We are demanding a clear, itemized accounting of how much taxpayer money has been spent on lawsuits, legal settlements, judgments, outside counsel, and insurance deductibles or self-insured payments. These are not abstract expenses. They are the direct result of decisions made by district leadership. Further, this community is well aware that multiple senior administrators have departed abruptly. With no meaningful public explanation, some are reportedly still in ongoing litigation with the district, and others have already received financial payouts. So we ask plainly and publicly, how much money has been paid out in administrative severance agreements, settlements, and negotiated exits over the past 5 years? Where are Where are these costs reflected in the budget, and what are the exact line items? Why are these expenditures not clearly disclosed to the public at the time they occur? If insurance payments are increasing because the district is repeatedly paying claims, settlements, or legal fees tied to personal decisions, then the issue is not insurance. It is governance, oversight, and accountability. Taxpayers should not be funding the consequences of poor leadership decisions while being denied transparency about where their money is going. We are no longer interested in generalized explanations. We expect specific dollar amounts, clearly identified budget categories, and a public explanation of how this district intends to prevent further financial damage. Anything less is unacceptable. Transparency is not optional when public money is involved. If the district cannot clearly explain where this money has gone, then the problem is not perception, it is governance.
Hi, good evening. Ryan Clark, 398 Westminster Road. I have 2 children in Covert. I'm a lifelong educator. I'm also the district swim coach. Who knows for how long? As a proud union president, I'm happy to stand here in solidarity with my brothers and sisters from the RVCTA. We say that curriculum is at the heart of education, and at the heart of curriculum is teachers. And I think curriculum as a foundation is a really good metaphor because our foundation is clearly broken. We have not been taking the time to go back, renew what is broken, fix on what we need to do for the future. And no offense, John, you're an interim. We don't have a full-time assistant superintendent for curriculum with a vision who's going to lead us forward. So we're spending a lot of money. We're paying a man who isn't going to be here to see these consequences 5 years from now. So if we don't get back to basics, if we don't focus on what is good about IB, why are we advancing things into the middle school? Why are we buying into the ICT program and community-based schools? Then we are really not doing any justice to the kids or to the taxpayers. Now, for the taxpayers, the last meeting, I was shocked and amazed that the board said, "How did we get here?" And I'm glad to hear today that you have realized that there's a fiduciary responsibility that you have. How are you, who have hired and are supposed to supervise the people on this side of the table, how are you doing that and managing our taxpayer funds? We've heard this night about settlements, other administrative costs, and I think those are questions that you as a board need to answer to us as taxpayers. So, I really hope that moving forward, we can return a lot of those TAs, and I see TAs in this room who helped my daughter learn how to read. Get them back in the classroom, and if we need to pierce the cap to do it, we have all the evidence right now, right here, with these hardworking people who are making a ridiculously small amount of money to help kids read and get better in math, and then have to stay after a project great and do the same exact work with them again so they can make a living wage here on Long Island. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Hi, everybody. Rory Primrose, 355 North Forest Avenue. As tough as all this is to hear about today, does not compare to how tough this is going to be next year with all these proposed cuts in effect. I'm sick to my stomach thinking about teachers being let go based on hired date. These are people's lives. People who will work with our kids every single day, day in and day out. People who happen to be amazing male role models at the middle school where we desperately need them. People who are teaching our children how to speak and communicate. People who care for our kids like they were their very own in every single building district-wide. My question is this: if RVC was audited and found nothing nefarious over the last 3 years, the budget was passed each May, how are we in such a deficit? The staffing and the special ed that you keep placing all this blame on has been budgeted for. It does not add up. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jill Gizzo. I live at 88 Allen Road in Rockville Center. I have a 9th grader, a 12th grader, and it's like so depressing to me that the last time I was called to actually stand up and speak at a meeting, because this is terrifying, is when world languages was being cut the first time. My kids were in elementary school, and I can't believe we're back in high school thinking that the answer is to do less for our kids. And that's kind of what I want to talk on in the beginning. When we have been visiting colleges with my now 12th grader, the thing that they say to look for is a campus that is growing. At the same time, the class size is shrinking. We are the opposite. Everything that you just put up on that board is like, let's take it away from the kids. Let's make it less accessible. Let's make you pay for your instruments. Let's take away 10% of your clubs. Let's make your art classes bigger. Art may not be the most popular class in this building, but guess what? There are people who are really dedicated. We talk so much about our teams that are winning. My kid just got a scholarship at the county art fair. We don't talk about things like that because it's not important to us. There is so much that we need to do to grow our school. It's the opposite of what we're seeing on that board. That's not even what I plan to talk about. What I really wanted to say is that morale is down, but Mrs. Danino said that. And our kids know it. And you should know that our kids are feeling it every single day. It's supposed to be all about the kids, but they have teachers who have to actually go to sleep wondering if they're going to have a job. I am a teacher. I couldn't really give my 100% if I thought I was going to be unemployed next year. So not only that, so you have teachers, they're worried about their own jobs, teachers who are worried about their peers, the kids who are worried about their teachers, and parents who really feel like we're standing on a sinking ship. Morale is down. You have to fix it. That's your job. And the last thing I want to say, am I running out of time? The last thing I want to say is that for my own kid, for my 9th grader, you're taking away a science teacher in the high school. We need every minute of science teaching that we can get. Look at our biology classes right now. We need all of the support. We don't need bigger classes. We need more science research. We need kids who are thriving in this subject. I can't believe that we could exist with one less educator. You should be looking into ways to add to that department, not reduce it. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Schwartz, 256 Brower Avenue. As an educator, I'm aware of the bloat in education, which has no connection to children's success nor the rankings of a district. On the other hand, as a taxpayer, I was mortified to hear that an elementary school teacher was told she could not make any more colored copies as the district was out of money. Okay. Taxpayers deserve answers. For instance, I'm still waiting for the results of last spring's parent and teacher survey. There seems to be no true plan to curb spending at the top while teachers are being excessed, nor a plan to take accountability for the actions that got us here. In fact, there was no mention of this mess before last year's Board of Ed elections or the extension of administrators' contracts. The lack of transparency extends to the budget presentation. Several meetings ago, under the curriculum and staff development category, what are the amounts of money designated to administrators, money for conferences and travel expenses, new programs, consultants? What happened to the myriad of programs brought in under the previous assistant superintendent for curriculum? What was the cost? Were they effective? Have they been abandoned? Or will they be when the next person rolls in? What is the cost of technology in our schools? At a time when experts such as Jonathan Haidt, author of The Anxious Generation, are calling for the removal of devices in elementary school classrooms and middle school classrooms, why aren't we ahead of that curve? We've had a number of failed construction projects in the district. What was the situation with the vent for the woodworking class? Why was a structure deemed a fire hazard even allowed to be built? There were also issues with the fencing installed at the middle school. I was under the impression that when you build something on a school district property, you actually have to get a permit from New York State Board of Ed. So I'm confused as to how we're running into all of these problems. However, I believe if you're not going through the proper channels for construction projects, you are costing taxpayers a great deal of money. I think there are a lot of other issues with transparency. For instance, are there any personal conflicts of interest that might interfere with an impartial evaluation of IB? Tonight, I was again mortified listening to the cuts, which will impact our students negatively, but are merely drops in the bucket. While according to last year's budget, the salaries and benefits of a mere 15 administrators equal $2.96 million. Children should not be the ones to suffer due to poor planning and misspending of the district. If the student population has led to a reduction in programs and teachers, it stands to reason administrative costs also need to be reduced. The way out of this mess is accountability, transparency, and cutting the bloat.
Good evening, Mr. Gavin and members of the board. Mr. Gavin, thank you again for clearing the snow from the sidewalk some weeks ago. That was much appreciated. Some of my fondest memories are from my years in school, the teachers who made an indelible impression on me, and the positive experiences I had with classmates and friends. I truly wish that every child could develop the same love for learning that I did. Given the financial predicament the district currently faces, however, it saddens me to think about the possibility of losing some of our excellent teachers. On Long Island, school district reputations are closely tied to real estate markets. Rockville Center spends roughly $35K per student, which places us alongside some of the highest spending districts in Nassau County, such as Jericho, Syosset, and Garden City. And yet, our academic outcomes and rankings are not always comparable. That suggests we should take a careful look at how resources are being used. One area worth reconsidering is the IB for All approach. Students have different strengths, interests, and learning styles. A one-size-fits-all academic model may not serve every student well. School should certainly be challenging, but it should also be engaging and confidence-building. Students should feel they are stretching their minds and growing, not constantly struggling in ways that erode their confidence. A curriculum that better aligns with students' varying capabilities may ultimately lead to stronger outcomes. I also believe it is healthy for any governing board to reflect a broad range of perspectives from the community. Education expertise is obviously essential, but backgrounds in areas such as finance, budgeting, and organizational management can also be extremely valuable, particularly when the district is facing financial pressures. Encouraging broader participation in future board elections may help strengthen the district's governance. I sincerely hope the administrator can stabilize the district's finances, rebuild reserves, and avoid losing teachers. Our teachers are one of the most valuable assets this district has. I would respectfully encourage the board to conduct a formal review of the IB for All approach, including its costs and outcomes, to determine whether it is truly serving the range of students in our district and whether adjustments could improve both student outcomes and financial sustainability. I am rooting for your success and for the success of our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kyle Mosher, 41 Vassar Place. I'm here tonight. I was watching the stream with my mom, Margie Mosher, who is a she's an elementary school teacher at Watson, reading teacher, and I'd like to reference Board Policy 7420, the athletic placement process. The purpose of this policy is to allow students to compete at a level based on readiness and ability rather than strictly age or grade. Providing increased opportunity, appropriate competition, and personal satisfaction for student athletes. I'm standing here today as somebody who benefited directly from that opportunity. I wrestled varsity from 7th grade through my senior year, and during that time I became a 3-time county champion and a 5-time county finalist, including winning a county champion in 8th grade. Also, I was a 5-time All-State wrestler and New York State champion my senior year. Ultimately went on to wrestle Division I at an Ivy League school, where I made it to the round of 16 at the NCAA National Tournament and was an EIWA conference champion. But my development didn't happen in isolation. Many of the athletes I trained with on my travel teams were also given the opportunity to compete at the varsity level in middle school at their own schools. Those opportunities helped all of us to develop together and push each other to compete at the highest level. I understand the board's position that the concern for high school rosters and that are already full, and that that playing time might be limited on the rosters. But development isn't about match time, it's about the environment. When I joined the varsity team in 7th grade, it didn't just help my development, it helped the development of the older athletes around me. We worked together every day, sharpening technique, pushed each other in the room, and raised the bar for the entire team. As the saying goes, iron sharpens iron. So the question becomes, why should our athletes be denied the opportunity that their peers on the same travel teams are receiving at other schools? Just because a middle school team exists doesn't mean every athlete should be limited to it. For exceptional athletes who meet the standard, staying only at the middle school could hinder their development rather than accelerating it. Policy 7420 already provides the framework. If a student meets the criteria, passes the physical and skill evaluations, and proves that they are ready, they should be allowed to compete at the appropriate level. For the future development of our athletes, I respectfully ask that we allow talent and readiness to speak for themselves. If they meet the standard and pass the exams, let them play. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Christina Ferrara. I am the Special Education Academic Facilitator at Southside High School. I would like to speak briefly on behalf of the Special Education Department, more specifically ICT, because the information presented in the slides does not fully reflect the reality of our program. Last year, our department consisted of 20 teachers. While that may sound like a large number, and it is, it reflects the fact that Rockville Center serves an exceptionally high percentage of students with mandated supports and services. Historically, this district has taken pride in providing strong programming, offering various course options for all special education students at all levels, in all content areas, as well as other meaningful opportunities for these students. Following retirements, we currently went down to 18 teachers. Even at that number, we are already operating very close to capacity. The ICT program in particular is functioning with what can only be described as a skeleton crew. ICT special education teachers often work with multiple co-teachers across multiple content areas and programs. Many of them carry some of the highest number of course preparations in the building. Personally, I currently teach 5 different preps, which is the contractual maximum. 5 preps is extremely rare for most teachers because it is extraordinarily difficult to plan, instruct, assess, and repeat that process across 5 completely different courses every single day. Unfortunately, schedules like mine will not be the exception, but more of the rule if we cut this amount of special education teachers. Caseloads for individual SPED teachers will also increase significantly. When caseloads grow, it becomes harder to properly monitor student progress, deliver individualized support, and ensure that student needs are being met consistently. Another point I want to clarify is the number of special education students in ICT classrooms. The slide presented an average of 6 students per class. That number does not reflect the reality in many of our classrooms. We currently have ICT classes with 12, 1, even 13 students with IEPs. While it may not be, it's technically accurate to say that only 6 students have ICT specifically written into their IEPs under programs, the reality is that there are other students in those same rooms. They may have resource room listed as a program. Either way, those students are still in the ICT class. They have IEP goals, classroom and testing accommodations, which need to be serviced. There are also students in ICT that have 504 plans or receive consultant services. All these students are, again, in the ICT classes. I would also just like to talk about the teaching assistants. Teaching assistants are an unbelievably critical part of our special education program. Though many community members may not realize just how essential they are, they staff the testing center where dozens of students take assessments with accommodations such as extended time, test read, scribes, prompting, refocusing, and redirection. During major testing periods, that center is currently staffed to up to 10 teaching assistants to support those students appropriately. Reducing that support to 1 TA would make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, to provide the legally required accommodations many of our students depend on.
Our TAs assist in all settings. In my Pathways reading class, they work with our students at Backyard Players. They help special class students access general ed health curriculum. They volunteer their time in the Writing Center. They teach at Twilight. They sing, they dance, you know who you are. They cheer our students on each and every day, and they are critical for the success of our special education students. I share these concerns because I want the board and the community to understand that these proposed cuts will have a real and meaningful impact on students, especially students with special education needs. I respectfully ask the board to carefully consider the full picture and the realities with our classrooms moving forward with these decisions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Shannon Lutz, 60 William Street, Rockville Center. Some food for thought. You spoke of declining enrollment as a factor here tonight. And while my daughter is only one child, I'd like to remind you that you put her in an unsafe situation and her father and I moved her to a safe one. How many children have been affected negatively by something irresponsible that happened to them in this district and have left because of it, thereby impacting staffing and funding? I doubt my child is the only one who fits this scenario. After the presentation tonight, I pray God finds a way to save the jobs of the teachers and TAs you are planning to cut, because cutting teachers will hurt children. There's a TA at my son's school that I've loved since he was in kindergarten. She brings the sunshine every day for these kids. This year and last, he has been the luckiest kid to have her in his class. Her positivity and work ethic are stellar, and I stand firm when I say cutting her would be the biggest mistake and a disservice to the students within her reach. What a true shame. I say this as a mother and an elementary educator. Your poor long-term planning up to now is going to hurt many people, kids and teachers, even parents whose children will suffer. But no central administrators are losing their jobs, is that correct? Putting it in a way appropriate to say out loud, this is beyond infuriating, especially with the district's declining test scores under your supervision. Student performance is declining when compared to our peers, and your way to save money is to cut teachers and TAs that assist said students, the ones that help them meet their goals in reading, writing, and math. This is a no-go for me, as it should be for you. I don't know what the answer is here, but this isn't it.
Good evening, Board. Thomas Hessel, 220 Pierce Street, Centerport, Harborfield School District, teacher, Rockville Center School District. Thank you for your time tonight. To the volunteers on the board, Rockville Center residents, all of the residents and teachers with me tonight, I just wanted to highlight some things about the complexities of accessing teachers. And so on the presentation up here tonight, and thank you for putting it together, and I haven't heard it yet this evening, and we're in very, very late. When you access a position, there are certain positions that there's a difference between how you are hired and what your certification area is. So if you have a list of, for instance, I can only speak to science, even though I love the elementary school teachers and the middle school teachers, and they are incredible. My mother was a middle school teacher. She's taught foreign language, world languages, right? And I've been here 25 years and grew up in Freeport. I have some of your children, I had some of your children. And my main point has to do with certification area of science teachers and math teachers. When you access a science teacher and say, oh, we need to pull back on science, Mr. Gavin, respectfully, you say that programs maintain. If you mean to maintain those programs, you're going to have to staff those programs with teachers that may not have the certifications you need to run those programs. This impacts math. This could impact science, potentially. I don't know what's going to happen. Mr. Gavin, you in fact advised me on the quantum program at Stony Brook. I took a class there. It was incredible. I can share with you that Dr. Kelly, the principal investigator of that program, shared with me the number one research indicated correlating factor that showed success in the quantum program was not socioeconomics, it wasn't race, it wasn't gender, it wasn't background, it was experience in science research. We have this past year, our science research program has exploded in success. Today I was out at LICEF. I was so proud of our kids. I just wanted to say that that's a plug for science research, and it's a little self-serving because I'm a science teacher, but the point being is that when you say on a screen, it's like, okay, we're going to be accessing teachers, and it's not going to impact programs. I really struggle to believe that. So anyway, I thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Yeah, I come every month.
Melissa Beltray, Serda, 515 Olive Boulevard. Parents deserve transparency with the events that are being slowly shared and leaked out around the district. Reducing and eliminating teaching assistants are going to directly affect our students and their instruction. Parents deserve to hear what this is going to look like, and we cannot be told that the current teaching models will run seamless without teacher assistance. Small group instruction, ELA, and math rotation, MTSS support are all built around the support of teaching assistants. Over 20 years ago, the community pushed for the district to be inclusive. This meant having all special education students return to their home schools for resources room or co-teaching. We prided Rockville Center for being an inclusive community, and it is a shame that within a few months you are dismantling this structure. Why? The community continues to hear about insurance costs are on the rise. The updates should not just reflect staff insurance. It also applies to the numerous staff that have left and are suing Rockville Center. It is interesting that before this current administration, there were not all of these lawsuits, admin being fired, excess are leaving to sue and be paid out. How many staff members are currently suing the district? How many staff have been paid out to leave? Those costs must be alarming for us to hear. Administration, why are we not reducing the amount of administrators? They get paid a lot and we have a surplus. We do not need 3 curriculum administrators right now. Other surrounding districts are hiring and are in the same state with unknown federal, state, and local funding. Please consider not to let go of the teacher's assistants.
Jeff Greenfield, citizen taxpayer. In my 50-plus years coming to these meetings, I haven't seen a good turnout like this, and I want to thank everyone for joining me at a meeting. I'm also struck by the passion of the teachers and the speakers that appeared here tonight, and I hope the school board is listening. And listening also and talking to them. I heard the president of the Teachers Association offer to sit down with you, and I'm shocked and surprised that you haven't had a good dialogue or interaction so far. I thank you, Mr. Gavin, for your presentation, together with your assistant, sounding the alarm here. I knew there were fiscal problems here, but I didn't know they were as bad as they appear to be. I have some citizen taxpayer recommendations. I think you need to form a taxpayers budget committee to have ongoing, not just at budget time, interaction with the community and to take input. We have some great financial minds in this community, and more than putting it on social media. So, yeah, we get a lot of input on social media. Maybe we could turn some of that into people working to help the district with its problems. I also spoke in the past about increasing the board to 7 members. I'm citizen taxpayer in the neighboring district of Lynbrook, where it's a 7-member board. And I go there and watch and listen and read everything from them. And I think there's some diversity with respect to the fact that we just don't have educators, and all due respect, You're all great educational backgrounds, PhDs and others. We need some business people on the school board. And maybe if we increase to 7 members, we could do that. And anytime I brought that up in the past, it was shot down. So maybe this is the time to do it now. It seems like we have a lot of interest in the community. Everyone's told you about full disclosure. I'm waiting for my FOIL to be returned with respect to our litigation settlements. I know we can't discuss it while it's in process and it's going on, but at some point, transparency to the taxpayers would be welcomed. I think a lot of people spoke to that issue. We should know what we paid out and if you wanted to disguise who it went to, if there's non-disclosure agreements, I'm not sure how legal they are, or you can hide behind that. But the taxpayers have a right to know how you're spending our money. And talking about money, last year we had the $1 million surcharge from BOCES for busing. I'm waiting to hear if that's repeating itself again. Are we getting? I go to the BOCES meetings now. They don't like me there. And they promise to get back to me. They never get back to me. They send me letters. They blow me off. They change the times of their meetings. And they're not used to anyone in the public, much less a citizen taxpayer showing up. I had the chutzpah to go to their meeting. They weren't happy. So I'm giving up on BOCES. You guys have to hold them accountable. But here, I'd like someone just to give me an answer at a meeting when I speak. Is the $1 million back in this year, or is it rolled back?
Ms. Rehack?
It affects me in Lynbrook also, Leslie.
So I don't know, if you remember last year, we moved a lot of our BOCES transportation away from BOCES, and Guardian picked up a lot of those routes, so we did get a lot of savings back.
Yeah, but you increased the budget line $1 million last year, or they did.
No, they did, yeah. We removed it from the budget. Some of it, and then we also consolidated buses and routes, and so we got a lot of savings after the budget was completed.
Okay.
So you'll see this year our transportation line actually decreased. It includes the increase for CPI, but then a lot of the decreases that we did during the year.
But BOCES needs to be audited. They just think they got a blank check. They give it out to all the school districts, and no one says anything, and once a year you vote for someone to go on BOCES. Are they lowering what they charge us? That's what I want to know, bottom line.
Not lowering. Their contract should have extended, and it would increase just by CPI, which we don't get until May.
So we don't know what they're hitting us with.
No, so we assumed a 4% increase in CPI in the budget for all our contracts that extended.
I may have to go back to a BOCES meeting.
But once we have the CPI, we will share it in our next meeting after that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Last time, electric buses. Now, I know upstate, they don't want it. Everyone fears electric buses. This week, I'm very happy I have 3 electric cars. And especially with the Rockville Center rates and also FPL in Florida, which is even cheaper. So we should embrace electric. I've been telling you that for years. That was my first greeting to Mr. Gavin. And it's not something terrible here. And there's grants and there's money. And in case you didn't know it, our electric rates are lower in Rockville Center. We can take advantage of that. Okay, let's take advantage of our fleet of our minibuses. Let's convert it all over to electric. Please. I'll see you next month.
Thank you.
I hope you all come back next month.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Gavin and members of the board. My name is Jamie Quinn. I live at 23 Windermere Place. So there's been plenty of people here tonight who have spoke about the frustrating position we're in as parents and taxpayers. Most of us came to this village with high expectations for the town, and especially the school district that we would be sending our kids to. As published on the district's website, it is the mission of the Rockville Center Union Free School District to educate our students to become independent problem solvers. It is our goal to empower each student to meet the challenges of tomorrow's engaging world. The district will provide a safe, nurturing environment in which individuals and civic responsibility is fostered, diversity is respected, and students are enabled to realize their full potential. I do not believe the district is holding true to their own mission, as we're asking more of students, staff, and parents with less resources to do so. The children in this district, along with the amazing teachers and support staff, deserve better than what we are giving them, and we are faced with uncertainty around their future and what this might look like. Over the course of the recent meetings, as we go through this budget process, we talk about transparency around the budget and it being fiscally responsible and attainable. As we refer to the $3.7 million deficit, as you brought up earlier, it was about $6 million, but we closed that gap within offering retirement incentives. It was stated that $2 million of the deficit was around contractual obligations. As far as the teachers go specifically, these are contracts and step increases that are received, so how are we not accounting for these in future years' projections? Another area stated as part of the deficit was around health insurance, which was about $2 million as well, which is where I have a question. My question is, the budget factors for expenditures that were presented at the last board meeting, where it summarized the expenditure sources, along with the 24-25 actual, 25-26 budget, and 26-27 budget, specifically around the health insurance. I went back as far as 21-22, and the health insurance, as you have stated, has consistently increased about 9% each year, except actually for 22 versus 22 versus 23, which went up 12%. If I go to the Rockwell Center Schools website and final budgets, as well as the budget brochure for 25-26, it has health insurance for 24-25 at $18.4 million, but what was presented at last meeting was $18 million. So if that adjusted amount is true, the 25-26 year was only budgeted with a 2.8 increase, rather than the 9% as stated. Even if I use the amount as presented of $18 million, the budget for 25-26 should have been about $19.6 million, not $18.9. So weren't we already experiencing a deficit from improper budgeting of about $700,000 on this one line item alone? The reason I bring this up is because we keep talking about transparency. I'm speaking to this as a finance professional who handles multi-billion-dollar budgets and projections, and the math is not mathing. So with all of these expenditure line items that keep increasing, if we make the changes proposed, how will we sustain this as a district and not be in the same position for future years? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
It's 51 years in the insurance business. I know something about insurance. The New York State Health Insurance Plan is a $2 billion no-bid contract with those wonderful people at United Health. I keep asking you to raise the alarm in the school board associations. I talked to my friend Tom DiNapoli. He tells me it has to come out of the governor's office. I don't know why anyone should get a $2 billion no-bid contract. And I think that helps everybody here, all municipalities. You have to start yelling about that through your association. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? How's everybody tonight? My name is Natalie Gallagher. I live at 68 Rockaway Avenue. I'm a parent and a member of the community, a parent at Riverside Elementary School. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Even though this is a very difficult position you're in, I still thank you. It's not an easy job. My speech is on my phone so I could avoid the high cost of copies. I came because the number we are being told simply does not add up. Seems like the theme of the night. And the people being asked to pay the price are the children and the teachers. Our district has long been known for excellence. Families like mine have chosen to live here because of the quality of education and the strong sense of community within our schools. But right now, many parents feel that they are being asked to accept major changes without being given the full picture of how we really got here. Our children's classrooms should never be the place where financial mistakes are corrected. First, there are concerns about the plans to move special education programs out of Riverside beginning next year. As explained, I know Riverside wasn't said specifically, but I know that that's the plan. As explained tonight, some of our most vulnerable students will lose the opportunity to attend their home school, which is why you started the program, correct? To keep the kids in their home school so they can meet their neighbors, make friends in their own community by their side of town. It also raises questions, I'm losing track. It also raises serious questions about what happens to that school community and to the dedicated staff who serve those children. Consolidating programs in one building could dramatically change classroom dynamics and affect instruction for all students. You're saying that it will be less than the mandate, but it's whatever, the 60-40 ratio or less than the 50%, no more than 12, and I don't believe it until I see it, and neither does anybody else. Second, there has been very little transparency about how we reached this financial situation. When the previous superintendent of business retired, but he's still working, the district said to be in good condition with a good 5-year plan. So how did it get this bad? That is the theme of the night. The community deserves to understand clearly how we went from that point to a multi-million-dollar deficit. The cuts and all of the elementary teachers are going to be directly affected, and all of our young, lifelong learners. Larger class sizes, fine. TAs being cut, equal. No small group instruction. No intervention periods during WIN. And limited individualized support many students rely on to be successful. You can't tell anyone in this room that it will be sufficient and successful. It's just not going to work. These are all the changes that will directly affect the daily learning experience of our children. Getting to clubs and extracurricular opportunities are also at risk. These programs are more than activities for our children. They are where many students find belonging, build confidence, and develop interests that last a lifetime. At the same time, questions remain about spending decisions and administrative structure, costly projects being redone, interim administrative positions being paid highly daily rates, and an increase in administrative roles over time, and no cuts to their roles. Even teachers are being asked to take a salary freeze. I know that it was noted that the admin did not take a salary increase this year. But the number I saw today on the screen, the one excess administrator, will live with me and haunt me until it's changed. All districts face financial challenges, but the solution cannot be to reduce the people who work directly with our students, while other questions remain unanswered. Before decisions are made that permanently change our schools, this community deserves the truth about why we stand here in this financial situation. And I know Roxanne spoke about the many admins that have left and are suing the district. Transparency should never be requested, it should be standard. Our teachers should not be asked to sacrifice their jobs or their livelihoods to solve a problem that they did not create. And our children, especially our most vulnerable students, should never be the ones who pay the price for decisions made behind closed doors. At the end of the day, we are all in this together, and I do truly believe that. Teachers, administrators, parents, and board members, we all want what's best for our children. That's the common denominator here. I do hear all the sadness in your voices, all the cutting, all these teachers that are going to lose their jobs if we don't fight for them. But no administrators are losing their jobs. And that's really where the problem lies. Transparency should not have been requested, it should be standard. Again, that's very important because we all seek transparency and we have not gotten it. I'd like to thank the members of the board for questioning all this nonsense that's going on. Janet, your care in finding other ways to save money and to save teachers is very noble. And Erica, for questioning all the students staying in their home school, because it's very important. I agree, this plan is half-baked. Our children's classrooms should never be the place where financial mistakes are corrected again. Please figure it out and leave our teachers alone and our most vulnerable students in their home school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. John O'Shea, 164 South Center Avenue. So many great things have been said tonight, and I know that the board is taking them all in and going to think about them. One thing is, any cut in elementary, high school, middle school is very, very important, but any cut in elementary schools hurts the high school and the middle school. So that's something to seriously consider, cuts in programs and things like that. Erica, you brought up cutting in flex, because we've spent so much money. All the programs that we've cut, the school district has invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in, so it's a hard thing to cut anything up there. I'd really like to say is we weren't in a financial mess last year, or the year before that, or the year before that, or the year before that. There are always challenges, always medical cost increase, always insurance increases, but we haven't had a problem, and this year is monumental. And it shouldn't have gotten that way. And one other thing I'd like to say, the administration recommends things, but the Board of Ed approves every dollar that this district spends. So it's really onus on the five of you to make sure the dollar is spent right. Thank you very much.
Hi, Susie McGuire, Dartmouth Street, parent and taxpayer. I have more of a question. I'm seeing that May 19th date, and I'm feeling the pressure of that for all of you and for all of you. So my question is, how can we dialogue more? How can we, like, in the next month maybe, and I realize we have a spring break during that time and people leave town and the schools aren't open, but I feel like there needs to be more of an opportunity to meet, maybe on a school level, and talk to the teachers and the administrators and the parents and the other taxpayers who live in that school and talk about how is this going to impact this school? What else could we possibly consider that this school can recommend that we could possibly do to change the situation incrementally, or what else can we do? I just feel like maybe if there's just more dialogue, and it's so great that there are I too say, like, I've never seen this many people at a board meeting, and I feel like this has to continue. The more people that are talking, that are seeing this, maybe they've seen something or they've had an experience at another district that helped, but what else can we do? And look, if we're saying that piercing the tax cap is off the table, I'm disappointed. I don't think it should be completely off the table yet. I think we still have to dialogue about that. And if that's what it's going to take, to the extent, I think 2 meetings ago I saw the proposal for what the potential piercing could be, whether it's to that extent, maybe it's less, but we also make some cuts, but I just don't think that should be off the table. As a taxpayer, as a parent, I only have a student in the district another 15 months, but yet I'm just heartbroken. I just think as a community, this is not what I want to see. This is not what I want for our younger generations. So please, if there's an opportunity for us to meet in our schools, talk with the teachers, talk with the administrators, talk with other local people there, I just feel like there must be, and I don't doubt that you have looked at a lot, but I just wonder, more minds, is there another way, whether we can, completely wipe out all these cuts or maybe reduce them? I would just like more dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you.
William Cooney, 91 Hempstead Avenue. I'd just like to address, or not address, but further the comments that were just made. Where is our state assemblywoman? Where is our state senator? We have an issue with our state budget. It's not providing us with enough help, and at the same time, it's spending all of our taxpayer money in a way that is doing a number of awful things. First, it's driving more people out of the state, and not just out of our school district, but throughout the state. I feel like a lot of the spending priorities in the proposed state budget by Governor Hochul, and I think it's absolutely correct that a budget is a very important document in terms of values and what we're spending on. Why are we, stressing over our budget when Governor Hochul's proposing to spend an additional, this is just an example, an additional $50 million for capital improvements for abortion providers? This is not reimbursement of the procedure, which is bad enough, but for capital improvements, we're going to have gold-plated Planned Parenthood facilities. So I wonder if the board would be willing, maybe we invite the governor to come here and present her budget and defend it. But at the very least, I think we should get our state representatives more involved. I'm a little bit surprised that neither one of them appears to be here tonight. They seem to be unwilling to help us. And the teachers union, I know they're always there for them. Why aren't they here for us now?
Thank you.
Last call.
You know me well. May I have a motion to approve items for action M1 through O12?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Our next meeting is March 26th.